Mic check. All right, let's roll. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and call this this special Planning and Zoning Board meeting of Wednesday, October 25th to order. First, I want to thank everybody for coming. I know that this has generated a lot of conversation, and we appreciate you showing up in person. I know that we also have a lot of people watching at home on our streaming service. I want to make just a couple announcements before I ask the board to approve the agenda. One, board member Fairfield is out of town. That was a planned absence. We knew that ahead of time. He was watching as well, so he will be able to be up to speed. Board member Polo is walking in the door right now. Look at that. And she sat right down in Jordan's seat. Perfect. That's a good place for you. No, that's good. We're right in the middle. I know that this is a deeply complex application, and I know that there are people in here who have strong feelings on both sides of it. I'm going to ask that we do this the Newberry way. We treat each other with respect. We listen when other people are talking. We hear everybody out. We hear out the applicant. We hear out each and every resident. I'm a high school teacher, so I'm really well trained at controlling a room if need be. And we will not need it because this is the city of Newberry and we don't treat each other that way. But if we do, we certainly have assistance there if somebody needs a breather outside while we all calm down. I also would like to say that these board members, they're volunteers. They're residents of the city of Newberry. They got involved. They wanted to give back. I've seen lately some rude comments, some petty comments, some outright salacious comments about them, and they do not deserve that. These people are just like you. They live in this city. They care about this city. They're giving back to the city by being up here, and they're going to listen to everybody tonight, whether you have said something really mean about them or not, and they're going to hear you out, and they're going to advise the commission with whatever is in their heart to advise them. But I want you to remember, these folks were not elected. They didn't ask for the vote. They volunteered to serve. I think we actually do pay you some, like you get a cup of coffee or something for being here. But this is a community service. So, and they come here, they sit up here. Sometimes they sit up here under abuse. Sometimes they sit up here under applause. But they spend hours reading the backup material, studying, asking questions, getting involved. And so I would ask you, you can say all those rude things about me that you want because I asked for your vote. And you can say that about the commission if you want. But these guys really are volunteers. They got a heart for the community. And I ask you to remember that tonight and perhaps tomorrow if you go back on social media. So with that, I'm going to ask for a approval of the agenda with one change. I'd like to, before we say the pledge, I'm going to ask board member Naeem if he would step to the podium and just offer us an invocation tonight that we all are guided in the right way. So with that one amendment, can I have a motion to approve the agenda as it was published?
So moved.
I have a motion from Naeem, a second from Don. Any comments or questions on the motion floor from the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Just approving the agenda with that one change. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Naeem, if you would take the podium, if you would please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ladies and gentlemen, if we just bow our heads for a moment and breathe in God's blessing. Heavenly Father, we come before you today and give you thanks to be able to be here tonight, to live in this great country, this great state, and this great city that we live in. We thank you every day for our freedom and the ability to live how we live and where we live. Lord, we pray now for those that don't have that blanket of freedom. We pray especially for those suffering through conflicts throughout the world. We want to especially pray for those in the Holy Land and in Israel, Lord, that peace be the ultimate blessing provided. I pray now especially for this meeting, that we as brothers and sisters of Newberry can speak in harmony, speak in peace, and speak in truth. That everything that needs to be said, that everything that needs to be heard, and ultimately that your will and only your will be done. I pray for the great city of Newberry, that we continue to move in the right direction, and that you guide us in every step of that right direction. We pray this in Jesus Christ's name. Amen. flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I tell you, before we move on, I just got to tell you how nice that is to hear that many voices saying the pledge all together. See, no matter what happens tonight, we're all Americans. We all live here. We all want what's right for our community. With that, I'd ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as it was published.
So moved.
I have a motion from Naeem, second from Ms. Kathy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That's going to move us to item 2 tonight, which is a request for a large-scale future land use map amendment from agricultural to planned development for a project known as NC Ranch Planned Development on approximately 1,293 acres. Before we hear from staff, I just want to say that we want to acknowledge that this is the largest application, most complex application that's ever come before us. That being said, we're going to take our time. We're going to ask questions here tonight. We're going to make sure that everybody's comfortable. Both the applicant and the board are both comfortable. If we need to table one item tonight or both items tonight and sleep on it and ask more questions and come back. So that is an opportunity. If we don't hear everything that we want to hear or we want to sleep on it, everybody has very graciously acknowledged that is very viable and sometimes a good path to take to just have a little bit more time. So with that, we're going to begin. I'd ask everybody to listen to the application because it is a complex application. Folks, if you're sitting in the back, maybe you could rotate in and out who gets a chair and who doesn't get a chair, and you're saying you can't hear it all? What about now? Can you hear now? But everybody up here is going to be deaf by the end of the night if I do this all night. So maybe we'll have to figure out a transcribe. Jason, you can whisper back what everybody's saying. How about that? We'll do our best to project as much as we can without blowing out every eardrum up here. Okay, so with that, we're going to ask staff to give us the presentation. Again, this is complex. It's a 50-year, half a century project. So we need to know all of the facets and all of the aspects and everything that we can possibly ask tonight. Okay, so we're going to listen to both sides here and see what we have in front of us. Brian?
Thank you, Mr.
You may have to hold the mic up because you have a tendency to, start whispering.
Actually, it won't move.
Oh, so we nailed it down. Okay.
Cord's too short.
Well, you have to stoop then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
By the end of the night. And Missy, if we can have any more on the air conditioning, I think that I see people sweating, and it's not because of the application, it's just because it's hot. As low as it goes, all right. Okay. Brian, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just so you all know in the back, the forward device doesn't seem to be working, so you might need to just take a cue if I might point to go ahead and move the slide forward if you would.
Finger up, advance the slide for it.
Yep. So, now.
Is it turned off, Brian?
Yeah.
And we put new batteries up there, so while you were working on that, I'll work the batteries.
There we go. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As stated, the first order of business tonight is ordinance 2023-23, CPA 23-06, consideration of future land use map amendment from the current future land use category of agriculture to planned development on about 1,300 acres to be known as the NC Ranch Planned Development. There we go. So briefly, we'll do an overview of the request, summary of the review timeline, a summary of the request, preliminary findings of staff. Because of the complexity, if you'll bear with me, normally we'll do a brief overview, hand it over to the applicant, and then the staff will do their report. Because, as the mayor pointed out, of the complexity, we might seek your indulgence. We'll go ahead and just staff will give its report, and then the applicant will have their turn and give their report to the board. Okay, so here you see the picture of the map of Newberry, and you can see the red outline boundary. That is our urban services boundary. That's the area within which the city commission has decided would be acceptable for urban and suburban type development with the provision of municipal services. The agents, Patrice Boyce Esquire and CHW Professional Consultants, Jerry Diedenbach, are here representing the applicant, the names of which the petition, the owners, are down below. And so the general details of the application, again, it's to change from agriculture to planned development on 1,300 acres and over a 50-year time horizon. The residential total number of units would be 4,500, which equates to 3.5 units per acre, which is less than the low-density residential category would allow for. And so it's actually at a lower density overall than it could be at. Of the 4,500 units, 3,750 would be single-family residential, 125 would be senior adult single-family residential, and another 125 adult townhouses, and a potential for 500 multifamily units.
Brian, before we move on, would you mind just giving a 60-second summary of what future land use means? What are we focused on in this agenda item? What is future land use?
So your future land use on a piece of land is the land use that the commission and the community has decided that they see happening in the future. It's what ultimately guides the direction of development on that parcel. In the city of Newberry, you have a lot of agricultural, obviously, because we're 58 square miles of city, about 2 to 3 of which are actually urbanized. In this instance, it's agricultural. You have a number of residential type categories or densities. You have low-density residential, which is 4 units per acre. You have medium, which is 8, and you have high, which is 20. Again, and then you have planned development. Planned development allows for a range of densities within the development, anywhere from low-density residential of 4 units per acre up to a high of 20 units per acre. And within the planned development category, you can mix those as long as your overall density stays consistent. And so you can cluster the higher densities in one area and then spread to lower densities as you move towards the perimeter. In a nutshell, that's what a planned development allows you. And then also a planned development allows for mixed use, which would include non-residential. And you can see on the right side in the pink, this application would allow for up to 800,000 square feet of non-residential mixed use. The plan calls for up to 250 assisted living facility beds, up to 300,000 square foot of self-storage or mini-storage, 30,000 square feet of medical office, and up to 370,000 square foot of retail general commercial.
Okay, I just want to make sure that everybody understands and the board understands. When we think about future land use, the 20,000-foot question is, in the future, do you see residents here? Do you see houses along this state corridor? That's always confusing and frustrating for residents because they want to talk about where the sidewalks are going to be and is there going to be a playground and those kinds of things. And in future land use, you're really just asking, do you see this area in the future as being a neighborhood? So that's the core question we're asking in this agenda item here tonight. Is that fair to say, Brian?
Yes, sir. Future land use.
Now we can get into what all could be there and those kinds of things. But future land use on that corridor, do you see that as ag? Do you see that as residential?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to make a mayoral proclamation. Anybody here in a jacket, you're free to take it off tonight because I'm about to take mine off.
Your future land use sort of acts as your overall umbrella, your vision of what the community sees that particular area developing as in the future.
And so just a brief history, the initial application was received in February of 2023 this year. There has been a number of sets of comments and review comments from staff going back and forth with the applicant. Each time the staff presents the applicant with comments on review, then the applicant comes back with a resubmittal to address those issues. Along the way, we realized that nobody on staff had really had any experience with this scale of a development. And so we brought in an outside consultant who has experience with large-scale developments of this type. Unfortunately, our first consultant passed, and so we had to, sort of at the last moment, find another consultant with the qualifications necessary to help us do a good review and make sure that we're contemplating all of the elements of a large-scale development that we need to. And we have got somebody on board now. She is excellent with what she's done. She's provided great input, some of which is still coming. And so through October, that's the progress we've made to where we're at this point right now. So primarily tonight is to introduce the petition. The reason we're here is to introduce the petition to the Planning and Zoning Board for review, comment, and hopefully recommendation to the City Commission. Introduce the petition to the public, receive some community input, and then lay out the process for moving the application forward, next steps. An aerial view, it's a little bit hard probably for some of you in the back to see, but the black and white dotted line shows the ultimate perimeter of the site. We've got some other maps that might show a little bit better depiction. Part of it is in silviculture, has trees planted on it, but most of this property has been and historically has been open land in agricultural use. Whether that was crops or whether it was cattle, it's been cleared and used for agricultural purposes for quite some time. And the wetlands, they're tiny, and they are not something that staff believes would provide any kind of a concern, but they did show up on the map, so we pointed them out here just for informational purposes. But they're not like a large-scale wetland that would have to be mitigated. Again, existing and historic site concerns, it's pasture silviculture, and it has been pasture and silviculture for quite some time. If you were to develop it under the current allowable development potential, you would be developing at 1 unit per 5 acres, which would net approximately 259 lots total. And again, the current, just the current future land use map, which is agriculture, and the request is on the shaded green portions to change to planned development. So preliminary findings, the property is located within the urban services area. And again, as stated earlier, the urban services area serves as the boundary that the commission and community has decided is an acceptable area for urban and suburban type development. There's no request to extend this outside of that urban service area. It's all within that service area. And so
I'm going to pause you right there, Brian, because I just wanted to give everybody a little bit of history, because the city just spent maybe the last 16 to 18 months doing community workshops, having community divisions where we talked about the urban service. We had one where we had tables laid out in here, and everybody drew the lines. And so the urban service area and the central 20,000-foot question in the urban service area is, where do you want to have density and where do you want to have rural green space agriculture? That was the question. And so the urban service area that Brian put up, and this still doesn't seem that loud. Can you get me any? They still can't hear me back there, and I'm talking right into it. So if you can give me a little bit more volume. So that urban service area map was a community-generated line of, this is where we see development, and outside that line is where we want to hold the line on not allowing any development. And we had at least 6 open workshops where people came in and out, and that was the line that was determined from that work. Go ahead, Brian.
thank you, sir. The application presented is an example of master planning, which is an opportunity for a much more comprehensive plan for the overall development of the area over time. Generally, master planning is going to provide a much more cohesive development. It's going to work internally and externally better than if you did a piecemeal development. It allows for greater input by the community along the way, and it helps to avoid the piecemeal development that, in the absence of a master plan, is likely to occur over time anyway. Being inside the urban services area and being on a major corridor, this area is, among other areas in Newberry as well, is primed for eventual development. And so there's always the opportunity to say, well, I'm just going to do 400 homes in this next development, and then I'm going to go up another 100 acres, and then I'm going to do another 400 units, and essentially come up with the same scale of development over time, but it would all just be kind of chopped up and one at a time, one-offs. It would not be a larger master plan community that gives the community, gives the city time to prepare for expansions of facilities, expansions of infrastructure. Whereas piecemeal, it's much harder to account for the need for mitigations along the way when you're doing piecemeal, just spot by spot developments. And then the level of development pattern is not atypical for Newberry. It's one of staff's finding. Spread out over 50 years, it equates to a little bit less than 100 units per year. And again, that's not atypical for Newberry. We're not looking at adding 400 or 500 homes over and above what we're already doing. We're pretty much looking at the level of development that the community has already been absorbing. And again, too, you could develop this at 4 units per acre under the low-density residential category. This development actually is proposing to do only 3.5 units per acre gross, and so, or net rather, and so it'll actually be at a overall lower density than could otherwise be allowable. And the staff did find that we do need to make a small comprehensive plan text amendment we feel would be necessary to further support the application if the decision is to go forward with it. That'll be coming at a future meeting. Again, here's a little bit bigger blow up of the urban services area. The entirety of the project is within the urban services area boundary, and so is contemplated for urban development.
And folks, I know it's hard to see that map, but if you've driven by that brand new Pretty City sign, that's sitting on 202. That's the eastern edge of our urban service area. So east of that, you guys told us you want that to be green space. You want distance between Jonesville and us. So that's kind of your marker there to know where you're looking at. I think you went past one.
So, there we go. It jumped several ahead. It's doing it again. Stop right there. Preliminary findings, obviously a development of this scale will have some significant impacts on infrastructure, and significant investments by the developer will need to be made to mitigate those impacts over time. And there, will be a list of clearly defined exaction and expectations that'll be established and agreed upon mutually by the city and the applicant if the application moves forward, that will cover all of those concerns. So addressing those concerns, infrastructure and services summary, water and wastewater, of course, is a big concern. Many of you might know that we're already under an expansion of our wastewater treatment plant. This plant ultimately, at build-out, would use most of what that new expansion is going to provide. However, again, over a 50-year time horizon, that makes it relatively easy and straightforward to plan for additional expansions in the future. And again, that's also an advantage of master planning, is it helps you better understand at what threshold of development you'll need to go to that next step. And then Traffic, again, obviously is going to be something that will be mitigated because the primary ingress and egress is going to be on a state road. FDOT will be involved. The initial traffic analysis indicates that there may be improvements to State Road 45 necessary sometime around Phase 3. If the phasing plan on a yearly basis goes as planned, that would be sometime around 2042. There is a fairly heavy reliance on State Road 45. There might be some opportunities to mitigate that with an additional drive that goes from the south end of the development down to State Road 26 on the west side of the city. Schools, of course, will be impacted. It's we've notified the school board, and they put it on their 10-year plan, so they understand that this is possibly coming. And I know there's been a lot of concern, of course, over schools. Their schools are already crowded. However, if you look at, say, for instance, elementary schools, the initial number looks frightening, but when you, again, spread it out over 50 years, you're looking at an addition of about 10 students in the elementary system per year at most. And of course, as that cohort works its way through elementary and then moves on to middle and they move on to high school, it's a moving number. And so ultimately, it gives the school board, again, knowing that this development is occurring and it phased over 50 years, it gives them time to plan as well, to know what's coming and to be able to account for that in their future planning.
And Brian, I'm going to stop you there because I got such a big crowd here. I want to take the opportunity to say this because I say this all the time. But it is really important for us to know, and us to know when we're communicating with the school board, that the schools are overcrowded. Nobody's denying that. I teach at the high school. I've got classes of 30, 31, 32. The halls are crowded, right? But Newberry Elementary School, 60% of Newberry Elementary School is populated by students that live in the city of Newberry. The school board buses the remaining students to bring us to 141% from outside of our community. Oakview Middle School is 50% capacity Newberry students. The school board buses the remaining overcapacity from outside the city of Newberry. The high school has a 40% Newberry resident capacity. The school board buses the rest of the overcapacity from outside of our community. I'm not denying that the schools aren't an issue. They absolutely are an issue, but they are not an issue from Newberry's growth rate. Newberry grows about 5% a year. We issue about 150 building permits. Jonesville, which is in unincorporated Alachua County and is governed by the Alachua County Commission, and those kids are bused to Newberry, issues about 3 to 4 times the building permits that we issue. And I've never once heard a resident go to a county commission meeting and say, you got to stop building in Jonesville because you're making our schools overcrowded. So I'm not denying the schools are overcrowded. I live it. I teach it. I work it. But I want us all to know where the problem is coming from, because it's your voice to the school board that can ultimately change that, because it is not our kids. I teach, my first period class has 28 kids in it. Only 8 of them live in the city of Newberry. Only 8. And there's 28 kids in the classroom. And so I have 20 kids that are from outside of my community. I love all of them. They're all great kids. I wish I could teach everybody. But when we're talking about who gets capacity, my stance will always and forever be that our community lays first claim to that capacity. And I say that to the school board. I said it to them when they were out here. Our community should get first dibs on those seats inside the classrooms. And so they're creating the issue by busing kids to us. They're making it difficult. I get it. We're communicating with it. And Brian just said, we haven't even seen this in front of the P&Z. They've already been notified that this is coming. Everything that comes through Newberry, they get a 10 to 20 year advanced head start notice that there's the population's coming. If you can't build a school in 20 years, I don't really know how to help you at that point. But we are giving them 20 years to make the adjustments that they need to make, and we're still in this situation. So, not denying the problem, I just want everybody to understand the nexus of the problem and the nuances of the issue. Brian, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent, but I have a good crowd here. I want to tell them.
It's your prerogative, Mr. Mayor. Further on infrastructure, of course, there will be things like fire and emergency services that will need to be addressed and that will be addressed in the development order. Parks, our comprehensive plan does require a certain level of service for parks. And again, over 50-year timeline gives plenty of time to account for that, and also too, there'll be recreational facilities within this development. It's not going to be built without having its own internal recreation opportunities there as well. And then, conservation. There's really not much in the way, an environmental evaluation like a phase one probably will be done, but it's been used as like I said, crops and silviculture and cattle grazing, I believe, for many decades. And so the likelihood that there's going to be much in the way of environmental issues is fairly low on this land because it's been cleared and used for so long. Water and wastewater, of course, those are probably your two biggest consideration right now being wastewater. Obviously, there will be significant demand generated. Part of the process will be an extensive modeling analysis done on the existing system, and then also how, at what point future expansion may be necessary. These studies will establish thresholds for mitigation and be finalized. And that sometimes you hear concerns, well, how are you going to account for all of that? At this stage of the development process, in the application for land use and the application for the rezoning, that isn't necessarily the correct place for that to be done. Once those are in place, the community's decided that this development's going to occur. Then, before you get to the actual on-the-ground development stage, is when those studies start to get conducted, and then the plans for how each of those mitigations is going to be completed is then finalized. Again, there may be some contemplation for an extension down to 266th Street to alleviate some traffic concerns. And all of this will be incorporated into a final development order before the completion of the application process. Can you advance the slide, please? Thank you. I think that went back up backwards. Okay. Now forward one. Okay. Yeah, it almost seems like there's an additional slide. There's some redundancy. Again, there likely will be the need for at some point for a new fire station. That'll be a part of the development order agreement. With the additional population, that puts additional needs for law enforcement. I think we're pretty blessed to have a very low crime rate out here right now, but as the population increases, you need to increase your public safety measures. And at some point, the city's been contemplating having its own police force for a long time. At some point, that's very likely to happen. This might be a contributing factor to that. Again, parks. There'll be additional park space needed for new residents. It estimates, the Bureau of Economic and Business Research estimates that for each new household in Newberry, that equates to approximately 2.71 individuals. And so that equates to about 12,500 new residents over 50 years. And conservation, they would look for additional opportunities for environmental protection opportunities. Yeah, go ahead, go forward. Somehow I think there's extra slides. It's not going further. Can you advance again, please? There we go. No, it went backward. Another. And another. And another. Okay. So for traffic, again, like mentioned earlier, there will likely be necessary improvements to State Road 45.
We're going to do the best we can, ma'am. Well, we try. He's a natural soft talker. This is him yelling, really and truly, if you just knew him.
Sorry. And so, obviously, there will be some need for improvements to State Road 45, US 41, State Road 45, possibly by Phase 3. There will be some impacts to State Road 26, and again, FDOT will coordinate with the developer and the city on those, how to mitigate those. Northwest 46th Avenue is actually a segment of county road, and so there'll be some coordination necessary with Alachua County on improvements to 46. I just need to lean down further. And of course, so as development occurs, there will be a schedule of studies and improvements along the way that'll be finalized at the beginning of each phase. And then, again, possibility for a extension onto 266th Street. Can you advance, please? There you go. Oh, wrong way. Okay, so the mitigations to infrastructure will be accounted for in a development order, or it could be some sort of a obligation, a development schedule under, once the thresholds are established for when specific improvements would be necessary, then those would be accounted for in the development order of the agreement. And so once all of the necessary agreements are negotiated and finalized, then the appropriate time for each of those instruments will be determined. And there may most likely be a global development order, development agreement that's going to contemplate everything at a little bit higher level. And then as each phase comes in, the more specific items, more specific criteria for each of those developments will then be finalized at that time. So, again, staff findings. We do believe that a fairly minor amendment to the comprehensive plan as a text amendment would be necessary to support the future land use map amendment, and that obligations and mitigations will need to be agreed upon and memorialized in a development order. And that will render the petition consistent with the City of Newberry comprehensive plan and land development regulations. Staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Board recommend approval to the City Commission, or if not ready for that, at least move the petition forward time certain to a special meeting of Planning and Zoning Board on November 29th. Both of those meeting dates would allow for a first reading of petitions before the City Commission on December 11th, 2023.
Okay, before we do any questions, I'm going to come down and see if I can do some work on that mic, because if you don't know, Jerry, he's about 9 feet tall, and he'll never be able to lean down and speak into that microphone. Can you?
He will do his best.
He might not even actually need the microphone.
It has unfortunately, it has a limited cable, and so you can't pull it out.
We used to have extra, because can you pull the cable out? Because I'm about to try it myself. I might
I'm afraid I'll
break
pull it out of the device, out of the microphone itself. Is
it on the floor?
stuck?
Give us 30 seconds, folks. See if we can get a little bit better. Just need a red thing, all right, if you'll just stand like this when you talk. Don't go anywhere, because we may have some questions for you. All right. And before I open up to the board, I just want to ask, Brian, we've got a P&Z meeting at the beginning of November. So
Yes,
by the beginning of November, we should have, I don't know how many days that is, but 2 weeks. What is the thinking behind pushing it all the way to the end of November?
No, sir, I said November, it's October 29th, but not November 29th.
October 29th.
And so, yes, sir, second meeting in October, and that would allow enough time to incorporate.
That's the commission meeting.
No, sir, October 29th, special meeting of the Planning and Zoning Board, if they don't make a recommendation tonight.
Okay.
That would still give us
We'll figure the
time.
date out.
Hold on a second. October 29th is a Sunday.
Yeah. We're going to figure the
We'll figure
date
it
out
out.
by the time we get to the end of this conversation. Uma, will you pull out your calendar and figure out?
But in
what that is.
time to move it forward
Right.
to the next.
Not on
event.
Halloween, which, by the way, if you haven't heard, guys, we're going to do Halloween on October 31st this year.
Oh, really?
Uma, will you figure us out a date? I think the applicant is fine with November 6th. The applicant's fine with November 6th. So if November 6th is fine, that would give everybody a little bit more time. So
Yes,
that
sir.
would be my suggestion while we're figuring that out. Board questions for staff. Board questions for staff? Or you want to just hear the rest of the presentation first? Okay, we'll hear the rest of the presentation. Brian, you're off the hook. Jerry, you got your projection lungs ready? Is that an empty seat next to you? There's somebody saving? No? Okay, they just stepped out. All right.
I do have my projection lungs ready.
All right, that's much better. There we go.
So,
I told y'all that was screaming for Brian. That's as loud as he gets.
yeah. I'll add this anecdotal portion here. On my kindergarten report card, Mr. Mayor, it says that Jerry has a strong voice and knows the appropriate time to use it. So, at least that served me well for the last 54 years. Good evening, everyone. How are you all? My name is Jerry Diedenbach. I'm a professional land use planner. This is my 33rd year of doing this. For the first 12 years, I worked with the North Central Florida Regional Planning Council, honing my skills before I went into private practice. And for the last 20, I have been a professional planner and now partner at CHW Professional Consultants, where we do planning, survey, engineering, traffic engineering, landscape architecture, ecological services, and construction management services. So this has been a pretty engrossing 20 years for me. Not anecdotally and totally germane to this, about 20 years ago, I got this phone call from this gentleman who happens to say, wait, he's not there right now. This gentleman who says, I got a dream, you know what I mean? And I think we all know who that gentleman is, because he said, well, what are you doing this weekend here? I want to take a little trip. So myself and my wife, who's also a professional land use planner and a professor at the University of Florida now, we got in my SUV with Tripp and Christy. This is like almost pre-Zeke and Christiana. And we drove down to Central Florida and looked at large-scale housing developments. That gentleman confused me with being an idiot, but he convinced me and got me on the top of my SUV with a camera to stand there and take pictures in the round of how development and how neighborhoods were being built. And I would compliment him if he were sitting here, but I'm sure he'll hear this from the back. Tripp has consistently been a school learned individual of planning and building neighborhoods. And so a couple years ago, we've been working together for a long time. He said, I think I want to do my master plan community now. This is something that he has held, that the family has held, and that we hold before us tonight. So I picked up, that phone call and talked to Ms. Boyce, who has worked with Mr. Norfleet and the family as long as I have, and we said, we have to make this happen. This is the right time to do this. This is the right place, because you have been honing this dream for decades. So tonight, before you, what we are going to do, if this will work, and I have a good long arm too, so I can make that radio wave connect, is present to you two elements here: a land use amendment and a rezoning of a portion of the farm that they currently run and work when they're not building hundreds of homes over the last several decades here in the city of Newberry and creating a place for families to raise their family, live, and love the community. That's the disheartening fact. When Brian did that and it went to black. So, all right. So tonight, we have before you, and Brian did a really good job of explaining, there is a land use amendment to the future land use map. And that is specifically, what do you all want, and what does this commission, who ultimately votes on this, to see this land become over the next 50 years or half century? Okay? It is a long development program. It is comprised of 8 6-year phases, so that at the bequest and the request of staff, We have a slow, we have a monitored, and we have a consistent development program to deliver in the community. The intent of this program is to do just that. The intent is to create a master planned lifestyle community that will grow as the city of Newberry grows over the next 50 years. The total project site is just over 2 square miles. It's 1,293.23 acres of land, so it's roughly 2 sections of land on the north side of the city. It proposes over 50 years 4,500 homes for families. And that comes in right where Brian was saying, right at about 3.5 dwelling units per acre. Actual math is 3.48. So it is lower than a low-density residential neighborhood would be. There will be portions of the land, because it is a master plan community, that will be higher. There will be portions where there will be attached homes. There will be portions where an apartment complex will ultimately be built over the next 50 years, and there is an assisted living facility, which otherwise is known as a nursing home. This is a place that is designed to allow first-time home buyers, people that are moving up in the housing market, people that are downsizing in the housing market, or people that are going into an assisted or skilled nursing facility to stay in the community, to age in place, and to age gracefully over the next half century. The intensity is the commercial portion. So density is land for residential, intensity is commercial property. So within the 2 square miles, there is a total of 800,000 square feet in a town center form. So a good way to relate to what that would look like, I'll give you some local examples from the community. Bless you. The Butler Plaza complex is 267 acres with 2.5 million square feet of commercial. The town of Tioga has several 100,000 square feet, nowhere near 1 million square feet of mixed uses in there, and it sits on about 15 acres, okay? So a town center is a higher density and an intensity area where you could have residents living above restaurants or shops or doctor's offices or lawyer's office, and it would be concentrated in there. And this entire plan is designed to span basically over 5 future decades.
And Gary, before you, okay,
Sure.
you go. Well, I'm curious, and I think there's probably a story to tell, because most of the applications that come here are 20 years. I think we may have had one that's 30. How did we get to 50?
Okay, great question. We got to 50 because we have been working with staff pretty much this entire year, and we wanted to present a program that was not only manageable, but was very predictable, and it fits the scalability of the city, meaning that at a rate of about 100 homes per year, it's not a tsunami of development occurring in the community. It is moving along at the traditional pace of the city of Newberry's growth over the next 5 decades. We originally had planned this as a 30-year project, but again, to better coordinate with staff and to allow enough time to occur to create roadway improvements, expansions to potable water, expansions to sanitary sewer, expansions to the school system, dedication of police, fire, and EMS land, we wanted to make it a longer time frame with monitoring in 24-month increments. So what the developer, and there'll be a slide that talks about this, what the developer and Mr. Norfleet has agreed to do is every other year or in 2-year increments, report back. This is where we are. This is the number of homes built. This is the number of square feet of non-residential. So that helps the city, the school board, sheriff's office, or ultimately maybe a police force, Alachua County Fire Rescue, and others plan for sequential, logical growth. So clearly, the application's goals are to create the entitlement, the future land use density and intensity over this 2 square miles of land, to have a master planned lifestyle community that will reflect Newberry's rich agricultural history and the character of the city. This is not about building a carpet of houses. This is not about building sprawl. This is about building a community slowly over time. And in doing that, when we sat down to investigate what I kind of call the nuts and bolts of development, okay, we asked Tripp, what do you want to build, and how do you see that progressing forward? Because he has built and established several hundred homes in the city of Newberry, multiple neighborhoods, and he stated that he wanted to deliver a broad range of housing forms, attached, detached, multifamily apartment, nursing home, the entire range of what a city needs, a variety of sizes and price points so that home ownership can be attainable for all citizens. And he wanted to do that with a small town feel. So I'm going to ask him, because when we had our phone call at the end of last year and began this process in our office, I said, Tripp, why do you want to do this? Well, I'd like Tripp to tell you that exactly. And he's back.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for hearing this application tonight and taking time to listen to it. Like I said, we've been kind of planning this a long time. You know, me and my grandma, Mentally Norfleet, talked about it 15 years ago when she was still alive. And we talked about what we wanted to do, how we wanted to do it. My dad, me and him's talked about it a long time, and you know, that's what we want to do. And you know, we want to do such a big project, and instead of doing it 100-acre pieces, we want it big enough so the city can plan. You know, so we can plan, so we can do it, so it's not all crowded. We can have the parks in there and the different stuff that we can have it. And then we want to have it where it's kind of like Newberry. You know, our entrance when you come in, I want it kind of like the old ranch styles that you come in with the entrance over the top with the ranch. Right when you come in, our plan is kind of do a U-pick, a farmer's market as soon as you come in. We want to put in about, before we even start with the houses, we want to put in about 25 acres of amenities, so you can, you know, have everything there that you want to use it. That'll be up next to the road more so it'll give a buffer. The U-pick will be up against the road. The amenities will be up against the road and kind of buffer it from the houses. And you know, in the amenities, we want pools, we want pickleball courts, we want to build a horse barn that people could board their horses, and you know, if you had a 10-year-old girl and she's into horses, you got a small lot where she can ride horses, and then when she turns 16 and is in a car, she's probably not going to ride no more, you know what I mean, for a while. But so you can do it all there, you know, and then throughout the neighborhood, we're going to have, I'd say, old country way we did, I'd say a level of 1 to 10. Our landscaping was probably a 1. You know, the new one we were shooting for like a 7, the town square, we probably ended up at a 5. Here we want to be at an 8 or a 9. And I mean, we really want it to be nice. And then our streets inside where we have the trees and stuff, I think it'd be kind of cool, maybe every 20 trees or so to have fruit trees and some grapes and different things. So when you're walking the neighborhood, you can kind of feel like you're in it. In places, there's going to be high density, but by doing the high density, then you can have the parks and the open space, you know what I mean? And because a lot of people nowadays just don't want to take care of a whole lot. And we take care of it all. You know, kind of the why we're doing it. You know, I'm older. I got 2 kids. They're fired up on this. They want to do it. I graduated Newberry High School, and our goal is, when I graduated Newberry High School in '86, there wasn't no jobs in Newberry. Unless you were going to farm, there wasn't no jobs. All the guys I graduated moved away. And our goal is, if you graduate Newberry High School, whether it's laying sod, being an engineer or lawyer, it might not be the job that you want, and all the jobs in between, you could get a job. Out there at the town square, not near as big as this is, on an average day, we work about 100 people. And I'd say 85% of them live in Newberry. And, that's kind of what we want to do. It's kind of a Newberry for me. The older you get, you want to see other people do good and do the whole things. and that's the big deal. And as times come on, we're out there, we're running cows. Everybody likes to see agriculture. We're not getting out of agriculture. Some of this land on the road, we might sell some and buy 2 or 3 acres for every acre we sell so we can stay in agriculture. But, we've got the RV park that got approved right next to us. We've got Avalon right across the street from us. I told Mom and Dad the other day, I said, y'all are in town. So we don't think it's something that's stuck off out in the middle of nowhere. And then we would like to keep investing in land that's further out that won't be developed. And all around us, everybody likes to look at cows, and we do too. But you let one of them cows get out, they'll act crazy. There's issues with it. And everybody said, well, Tripp, he's not with agriculture. I've done more agriculture in my life than most people, and we're not fixing to get out. But one of the biggest thing is I wanted to create jobs for my kids. I wanted to create jobs for anybody that graduated from Newberry. And not just Newberry. We've got some guys that's been with us 20 years. Older guys, it's been great. And we couldn't have done what we've done without those guys. We got a bunch of young boys now that's working with us. They're great. And some of them are from Trenton, Bell, Newberry, everywhere. And, to me, that's kind of what it's about, but that's the why we want to do it. And like I said, but we want to, I live in Newberry. I've worked here. I've never gone anywhere. And when we do the subdivision, I don't want to have to drive by it and turn my head and say, oh, we did that. I don't live in Texas. I don't live in Orlando. I live here, so when I want to do it, I want something proud. We want to be proud of what we did. We want it to look good. And then our houses, we want to be able to sell houses from the $250,000 or $200,000 level up to $1.5 million. And if Jordan, you bought $1.5 million house on your deal, and Kathy bought the 200, and everybody's in between, you can still, and you would take, say if y'all had family come visit, y'all would still go to the amenity and go to the same amenity. And that's the whole idea of the whole thing. The idea we wanted to do the age and place, in the town square back here, we have the cottage homes. I've had a lot of first-time home buyers buy them. 2 or 3 years later, get married, we take the house as a trade-in on one of the bigger houses. And, we've worked hard to get that customer. We want to keep them. You know what I mean? And that's it. The commercial aspect of the deal is kind of like when we got the town center approved. Everybody said, why do you want to do that commercial? Well, I've lived in Newberry all my life, and I hate to have to go to Gainesville for everything. You know what I mean? Now, I like to go at times when I need something. I want to go to different places, but after you worked all week, it's kind of neat to go to the Stonehouse and eat on a Friday night, not have to go into Gainesville. Well, maybe Saturday night, you've been here all day, you might want to go to Gainesville or wherever, but I want some stuff here. Probably the biggest thing, Slade Williams opened that gym right there, and we used to have to go to Jonesville to work out or something. I can go right there. And, it's been a blessing, but like I said, I appreciate y'all taking the time to listen to this tonight. We've been working with the staff. Whatever we do, we're not going to do it perfect. We're not going to be perfect. The only perfect person I know, we killed him. But what we want to do is we want to do something we're going to be proud of. I got 2 kids. They're fired up on it. We've been here a long time. We're proud of Newberry. I kind of feel like my grandma kind of helped lay some of the work. In the 70s, she fought like crazy to get the sewer plant here. And, Newberry was able to grow. If you don't grow, and I hate to bash on somebody, you end up like Archer. There's no staying the same. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. And that's the deal. So, but I appreciate, like I said, again, you guys listening to us and everything else.
But before you go, Tripp, turn it back over to the professionals. First, I want to say I haven't wanted to go to Gainesville on Saturday night in about 20 years. And I'm not trying to be a downer, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way. But the picture you just painted is beautiful, and it sounds great. This is a 50-year project, though, and you look young and healthy, but you're not going to be here to see the end of it unless there's a miracle, and I believe in miracles, so it could happen. But I guess what my question is are you comfortable and your children comfortable with having it in writing, the pacing that you're talking about? Because in my mind, a lot of what the residents are probably here concerned about hits right on that pacing. Then, you hear 4,500 homes and everybody thinks that's going to be built in a year. And what you're talking about is 100 to 150 homes a year. And I think that that's in the backup material. I know we're working on the developer's agreement. I think that's going to be in there. Everybody, and I see your daughter here. Is your son here tonight?
Yeah,
I just kind of seeing a head nod. Everybody's comfortable. I don't want you to put them in a position and say, well, man, I wish my dad hadn't locked us in here, that thing. But
Well, I think on the deal is, I think to make this project as big as it is viable, our goal is to try to build 100 a year to start off with. We don't want to be locked in to how quick you can build or how you can't, because there's going to be some years it's going to be better, it's going to be some years it's going to be worse, you're going to have a down economy. I was adding up the other day with Avalon and Coleman property, Davis property, and all the different properties. In the last 2-3 years, we've approved 5,200 homes. All but Weisman is going to be built by national builders. They're going to build them fast. And, and they don't have any governors on them. So I don't want to be locked down with the governor.
I'm not asking you to lock down a number. I'm just asking, as we work out with staff, to figure out something, because what we need to know, the city needs to know, is that if we need to build another wastewater plant, we can adjust the pacing to make sure that we can hit that kind of stuff. So I'm not trying to lock in on a number.
Right. No, but
smarter people will figure that out. I just want to hear those head nods that
I think we'd be real amicable, and like you said, those 2-year breaks when we do the notification. Another thing I think is we work with staff going forward, maybe a spot for a school, for the fire station, for a police station, I'm not for the city having its own police, but Alachua County Police Station. But, as staff and stuff think that we need it, we'd have a spot for that. And, and that's something you can do with a bigger development. You can have the land to be able to do that. And, and like you said, if we need a spot, we could set it aside and everything else as we go through, the next zoning, the next hearing. And then after we commission, we'll be working and hear what you guys have got to say, and then hear what the commission has to say, as we'll be working on the development agreement after that, and then the commission will get to hear it again. But we didn't want to do it ahead of time, because we wanted to hear what y'all's points were, what y'all were looking for, and also what the commission was looking for on that thing. And that's the reason that, it hadn't brought forth yet. But I just wanted to kind of touch those policies. But, in the past, we've always got along pretty good with staff, and we sure want to make, we don't want my answer or their answer. We kind of want the right answer, so it looks good for everybody. You know what I mean?
And if you're willing, Tripp, board member, has a question.
Any questions, Joe, go ahead.
And we are still in the middle of your presentation, so we'll get you back up here.
I'm done.
So, Tripp, thank you so much for speaking up on this. And I will say that I've seen your projects. I patronize the businesses in the town center. I love the architecture. I love the way everything's built. Your fingerprints on those are amazing. But you know what? I'm going to be very frank here, and I'm probably going to say something that it gets me in trouble. But I hate seeing what our national American builders have been building. It drives me bananas to see what they're building. I love when I look at your homes and I see there's different model homes. There's some that are pretty much the same, but you have designer homes. My biggest fear is this is a lot of land. And this is Tripp's dream. This is a Northfleet dream. And I'm not doubting the children of Northfleet, but this is a 50-year project. My biggest fear is with the economy going up and down, left and right, Tripp, you get older and the kids get stressed out and they say, you know what, I'll take a few zeros after that comma and go retire somewhere else and sell out to one of these national builders, and all of a sudden we have 1,000 acres of cookie cutter homes that was not in the plan. Is that something in the developer agreement, is that something that we can put in there that's pretty ironclad, that it is going to be a Northfleet design, it's not going to be sold out to a national developer, and if something happens that it needs to be changed, it's a unanimous decision, it has to be voted on, and it's pretty much ironclad that you're not going to sell out to our cookie cutter home builders.
Well, I think on that, the homes y'all have already developed, well over 1,000 acres, you've already got the cookie cutters. Our goal and what we've done in the past, that's what we're planning on doing. I would not sign a deal saying no, I could get killed in a car wreck tomorrow and my kids or something, you know what I mean, might not be here, but I wouldn't sign that. But our goal is to go forward and do what we said we were going to do. And our big deal is every time we've ever told the commission or the city we've done in the past, we've always followed through for the last 30 or 40 years, and that's our goal, you know what I mean? But what's going to happen in the future, I doubt it, but the kind of way we want it, because right now, if I wanted to, I could sell the land to a national developer now. Without it being approved, I wouldn't go through the mess of it. But, our deal is to try to make it a legacy. I mean, you know what I mean? If I want to retire, we could retire, but the whole idea is to kind of make it a legacy for the Northfleet family and the city of Newberry. You know what I mean? A place to live, a place to work, live, like Jordan said, age in place, and be able to do a lot of things, and still have the country feel.
Well,
That's just my biggest fear is at some point if the children decide to sell out, or even the grandkids at that point, because it's so far out, decide to sell out, and this beautiful plan that you wanted to come to vision doesn't
hang on
come
a
to
second,
vision.
because in a PD, the plan is already laid out. So even if somebody else comes in, they're going to be locked to the plan. So that's the benefit of a PD. And so they wouldn't be able to come in and change the density or change the design because the PD sets it out. And that's the question about the pacing. Could even sign, whatever staff and everybody gets together to figure out, that would be locked in stone as well. So I think that's the answer to that question. It's a good question. I didn't even feel the need to pull out a ruler on you, right? I thought it was a good question.
I know it was a little out of bounds, but I'm sorry, it wouldn't be a question from me.
But that's the benefit of a planned development, is that all those questions are locked in and can't change without coming back to the P&Z and the board.
That is correct.
Thanks, Tripp.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right. Hey, like I said, appreciate you guys listening to us. Thank you.
Jerry, come on now.
So, thank you, Tripp. And the why is why I'm here, too, because I believe in that direction. This is a generational project. This is one that has been nurturing itself through their family, and they will carry forward on this, and it would be locked in because of the type of land use and zoning that we're seeking here as a planned development. So this is a little repetitive from Brian's, but I'm a little bit more graphic in the way I present things, and they're moving faster than I thought.
Time tends to move quickly in Newberry.
So we started working on this last year, and we had a pre-application meeting with staff and ultimately submitted this on February 1st. The first round of comments, occurred through the April and June timeframe, and as Brian stated, a consultant was hired by the city. Unfortunately, he passed away a few weeks ago, and another consultant had to be brought on to help with this effort. So then through the second round of staff comments, we have put together the presentation that's before you today, along with all the competent substantial evidence that is part of our presentation, our application materials, and staff's presentation. So we're here now at the Planning and Zoning Board prior to the City Commission considering this application for what's called transmittal. A project of this size, anything over 50 acres in the state of Florida, ultimately goes to what is now called the Department of Commerce. And they act as a clearinghouse to make sure that the Department of Transportation, the Department of Education, the Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Labor, all see the application and respond at a state level because there are state facilities such as our school systems and our road system and our environment. So that will occur hopefully at the end of the year, and it'll come back to the city of Newberry after the state thoroughly reviews the application, and the city will have an opportunity then to adopt the final land use amendment early next year. Now, what we wanted to ensure you all is that once the application comes back from the state of Florida, the applicant, the city, will collectively and collaboratively work to prepare a developer's agreement. That developer's agreement will define and memorialize the project's phasing, the conditions, how infrastructure will be funded, roads, water, sewer, other expansions, recreation, and so forth, and whether the developer will do that out of his own pocket or he will use traditional mechanisms such as financing with a bank or community development district, CDD, or bonding or other mechanisms. That all gets memorialized as part of this program. So there's land use map, which is effectively a color with a number of houses and a number of square feet of commercial. There's zoning with a master plan, and then there's a developer's agreement that binds all this together in a form that can't be altered unless somebody comes back through this process before you all and before the commission. So as such, your opinions tonight are very important to us. To best prepare that development agreement, we have staff's comments so far because we've been working with them. Now we need yours, and we just heard some of those, Mr. Chair. Thank you for bringing those points forward, because those are the elements that we will work on while this application is off at the state to refine that developer's agreement into a development order that is a legal binding document, okay? So, here's how the 50 years looks in a table. When I sat down originally with Ms. Boyce and Tripp and his staff, we looked at what do we want to do. And one of the key components, as Tripp stated a few moments ago, is he wants to have housing available for everybody. So you see columns number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are the 8 6-year phases. And beneath that, the first rows there show cottage homes, entry-level homes, court homes, designer homes, and executive homes. So in every phase, there is the ability to have a home for everybody, wherever they are in the continuum of buying a house, wherever they are in the continuum economically, but then to share in the same amenities and the same recreation space and the same quality of life in the one community inside the city of Newberry. Now that takes the entire development program across a 50-year life cycle. So when looking at that, the way we break that down is in that first column, approximately 425 homes are there, so that's roughly 75 homes a year times 6 years, okay? So it is not a tsunami or an immediate wave of massive development happening. It is a very theoretically timed and very carefully planned development. It also brings on something that we seem to need a lot of here in America, the United States of America, mini storage. If you think of when Tioga was built, because people were moving into some homes where they didn't have yards or big areas to store stuff, one of the first things that we're going to put in there is some mini storage, because if you've got a boat, if you got a side-by-side, or if you have some sort of recreational vehicle and not a place to put it on your yard, we don't want them in driveways. We don't want them parked on streets, but we want to immediately have a place where people can put their extra stuff. I know people that have 4 or 5 sets of Christmas decorations, and they look for a place to store those. And so bringing a little storage on initially is to help give people a place to store their things, recreational vehicles, a third car, or something like that. So next, by the year 2036, which by all good math is about 12 years into the future here, because we're about at the end of this year, we're at a phase of about 100 homes per year for 6 years. 3 drops down a little bit because we realize the United States economy goes in cyclical patterns where there are increases in residential consumption and residential home buying, then there are little valleys where the commercial carries and catches up. So as phase 2 completes, you see not only is there a little bit more mini storage brought on, but the first components of non-residential would be completed, and there'd be about 50,000 square feet of businesses, retail, service, office. By phase 4, in the year 2048, we're again ramping up in that year with about 137 homes per year, but we've also introduced, if you see above the yellow arrow, senior attached homes in the forms of townhomes or duplexes or quadplexes where seniors could live in a maintenance-free lifestyle, or we call it lock and go, not having to care for yards, not having big, landscaping, but we would have attached homes and also at that point in time bring in an attached apartment complex in there. So that's why that one spikes up a little bit. But then it drops back down again to about 500 or 83 homes a year for a 6-year period. And then it slowly, over 2054, then the next period, 2055 to 2060, up to 550, then in phase 7, up to 600, and it plateaus there. So that averages about 100 homes per year over the next half century. To accommodate that, you can see with the orange arrows, and I did it because land use is generally associated with yellow on a future land use map. The commercial comes in after residents have been there for a while so that there is a population that can walk to the stores, walk to the restaurants, walk to the gym, walk to the doctor's office, and then it continues to add on as more residents get there. And it grows in time with our community as a whole and Alachua County. Most importantly, and I'll say this again, we expanded this from a 30-year horizon to a 50-year horizon. And what we've agreed to do and have proposed in our documents is to provide biannual reporting every 24 months back to the city so adequate planning can be accomplished for infrastructure growth, for additional water capacity, sewer capacity, roadway enhancements, seats in the school, police, fire and ambulance. So we're going to give biannual reports. It looks like there was a question leaning forward.
He always looks like that.
Okay.
Did you have anything? But you reminded me though, Jerry, because I wanted to say this when you explained it before, so I'm glad you said it again. I want to take a moment to say thank you for the 50 years, because I know when we first heard about this, it's a big number, right? You hear 4,500 and you start sweating a little bit, and we knew the timeline and we said, look, the only way we can get our head around this is if it's a big span of time. So I can't see him, but I can say to his daughter, thank you for going from 30 to 50, because it gives everybody a chance to breathe and a chance to plan. And it may not be as fast as y'all initially intended, but I think it's a whole lot better chunk to swallow with that extra 20 years. So thank you for that. We're still in the middle of it, but I want to say I appreciate that.
I intend on trying to get to 110 myself, so got another 50 to go. All right? So here's the context map. As Brian showed you, this is the map included in our application. The project is within the city of Newberry's limits. It's also within the urban services area, an area that has already been designated as the future area for urban type development because water and sewer would be planned there. The property today has access to 41 State Road 2745, and there's also a rail line that's in the center that's bisecting the property. So between those two checkerboard boxes, there's an active rail line in there. Historically, the land has been farmed by the Norfleet family, and they want to create a master plan community that is a lifestyle center. So looking more closely at the property, the reason we're here is because the Norfleet family wants to ensure the long-term viability of the city, its existing and future residents, and they're doing that through a master plan process. The process that we're here doing tonight really will define the site's density. So again, on land use, we're looking at 4,500 over 50 years and 800,000 square feet of non-residential to support that and the city's ultimate growth. This timing allows the city to plan along with all the other state agencies and know exactly what's happening. This is not designed to be a piecemeal project. It's designed to be a holistic plan. So accordingly, what we're asking is today we have agricultural land use. We realize that there are agricultural uses around us to the east, to the north, to the west, and to the south. And so buffers will be included around the perimeter of the property to ensure that there's landscaping and that there's a nice transition. In addition, because we have every different size of lot and house product, the idea is to use what's called transitional density buffering, meaning that the largest homes and the largest lots exist at the perimeter. The smallest homes and the smallest lots will exist more toward the town center or out towards State Road 2745 US 41. So at the edge, bigger properties, more open space. In the center core, more walkable, more bicycleable, or if you want to take a golf cart through the community, you can do that. So what we're asking to do is go from an agricultural land use to a planned development, okay? The subject property wants to have the specific density and intensity over the entirety of the 1,200 acres. The project is going to be subject to specific conditions and the phasing schedule that I showed you, and the applicant has bound himself to work with the city of Newberry for the provisions of infrastructure, again, meaning roads, water, sewer, electric, and so forth, as well as recreational spaces, trails, and open spaces. Click, please, miss. Thank you. Today, the property has a zoning that is agriculture on it. So we realize that, and through the master plan process, we are going to include buffers around the outside of the project, as well as internal to some of the neighbors inside the project. The mixed-use plan, as Brian stated, allows us that flexibility to have many modes of transportation work by including sidewalks, trails, and enhanced linear park through the project north to south will also provide us with the ability for people to get from this project closer to the city's core. Should the rail ever be abandoned or decommissioned, then a full linear park can be brought right into downtown Newberry. Should that rail be abandoned further to the north, we would be forming the first 2 miles of a rail-to-rail conversion in here in this property. So today we can parallel that rail line, and if it's decommissioned in the future, the first 2 miles of a rail trail connecting Newberry to High Springs would already be built. That's an important component because in this overall project, we've talked about a couple things. 2 square miles of land, 4,500 housing units, 800,000 square feet of commercial. The way that this balances itself out, the project is roughly 2/3 developed area and 1/3 open space, recreation, and stormwater management. And because this is such well-drained soil out here, those stormwater basins that you traditionally see would function like those larger fields that you see in Tioga, some in Hale, and elsewhere, where when it's not raining, or you have enough sense to get out of the rain, that may be the place for an ad hoc soccer game, or to go fly a kite, or to ride your bike in there. There are also natural features on the site from historic mining that occurred post-war and earlier, and so those features will be converted to recreation areas. Some of those are right out on State Road 2741, or US 41, State Road 45. Overall, this is a very, very unremarkable piece of property, and I'm saying that like a doctor would say, your report is unremarkable. There's nothing in here that we have found that is a detriment or that would be a caution when looking at development. There are relatively flat soils out here. There are no FEMA floodplains, and the only wetlands that are on the property are artifacts from historic mining. So we don't have a tremendous amount of wetland systems across here, or floodplains, as you can see here. This map is generally showing you that topography and just a couple blue spots where there was historic mining that occurred on the site. So those elements will be turned into components of the recreation component. There's some other areas where there's been some dragline mining and stuff in there. We're going to turn that into mountain biking and recreational type trail systems on the property. Again, on the soils map, we find that the majority of the soils on here are National Resource Conservation Service soils, grade A, very well drained, and there are just a couple spots on here that don't get an A grade because they were either former pits or dumps or small little vestige pockets of soil. So, the PD master plan. In taking this program on here, what we have and what is in your application packet shows how this land ultimately would develop over time. And Miss, I may need to click. Here it comes. So there are multiple phases that are roughly 150 acres per phase across the program. The idea is to develop out on the state road first where there is existing water and sewer service. But as you can see down the center line of the project, there is a red line. That is most likely the new sewer connection that would come and end up heading directly south through town, directly to the wastewater treatment plant. So this would require a new connection ultimately to make this project viable over the life cycle of the project. The center of that also has a white line down it on the right side of the red line, and that's where we would propose the linear park along the existing rail line. And again, should that rail be decommissioned and released, that forms the first 2 miles of a rail trail connector either into the city or, if it goes further, in between Newberry and High Springs. So, we know that there will be impacts. That's why we have put forward a voluntary biannual reporting mechanism so that every other year you will know where we are in the pace of this program so that there are no surprises over time and that infrastructure can adequately be planned. This is a local developer. This is a generational project. This is local people in the economy working together on this. This is not a sellout to a national. So it is important to know that the commitment here is designed to make sure that the quality of life remains high in the city of Newberry, not just for those that are moving here this year, next year, or 10 years, but for people that have been here 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years already, so that we do not destroy the very character that we are seeking to create in this community. If you look at the Florida Department of Transportation's annual average daily traffic maps, today, most of the DOT facilities are functioning around 50% of capacity here in the city of Newberry. That changes dramatically when you get to I-75 near North Florida Regional Medical Center, where there are 40 or 53,000 trips on the road. This is a way to combat that. This is a way to bring those services here so you don't have to drive to Gainesville for everything, for the doctor appointment, for the MRI, for the dentist appointment, or the orthodontist, but to create a master plan community here where Newberry can have all the services and all the opportunity that's afforded in other communities right here at home. So, in summary, our goals, our TRIPS goals, is to create a master planned lifestyle community for the Norfleet family, to create a legacy project here in the community that they call home. They want to create an opportunity for everyone in the workforce to continue working, to grow the workforce, and to afford to be able to live in this community with a continued small town feel. And, oops, I couldn't say it any better. Missy went back one clicker. But I couldn't say it any better when Tripp described the why. That's why I'm standing here. If you go to the last slide. Yeah. Yeah. He may be at the start. But the why we're here is because he's doing this for you all. He's doing this for his subs. He's doing this for the families of the families that work with him side by side, day in and day out. And he wants to make sure that the legacy and the gifts that this community has given to he and his family continue to go generations into the future. You got to be careful with that last one because it just jumps there, I guess. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
on this last slide.
Well, yeah.
Oh, no.
Don't go so fast. Just stop with one, do 2 more clicks. That's the last slide. So that's the why. That's why we're here tonight. There you go. Oh. Yeah. Go back. Back to the left. 1, 2, 1 more. Stop. There you go. That's the why. So with that, I am more than happy to close, have a sip of water, answer any questions you all have, but I hope you understand that this is something that we believe in because for a long time, the Norfleets have believed in it, and we want to help deliver their vision. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go to board questions. Before we go to board questions, I just want to remind everybody we're in future land use. So the questions right now need to be generated as much on, the big broad pictures. We're not to sidewalks and where this house is going to be and where that's going to be. That stuff comes later. So future land use is the stuff that's been presented tonight, and I actually think they've presented all the information that would actually get you into some of the rezoning questions. So we'll do our best to make sure that we're staying on topic because the next item on the agenda is the rezoning. And staff, you'll help me because sometimes I get off in my own rabbit hole, right? Because it's difficult to tell the difference between the future land use and the rezoning. So let's try to do one at a time here. And Naeem, you got a question about future land use?
So in comparison, you compared it to Tioga, Butler. More realistic, I like to see is have you done a comparison of how this looks compared to Hale Plantation? Because Hale Plantation does have that village feel where you have the doctors, you have patty cakes, you have sushi, you have apartments on the top, then you got nice houses, you got smaller houses. How does this compare in what we see in Hale Plantation today? I don't know if you did a comparison to that.
Mr. Chair, I didn't do a comparison, but I can tell you from historic knowledge how it compares. So their town center in the core area is about 15 acres. Their overall density in Hale is about 3 dwelling units per acre. It's a little lower than this at 3.5. They have there multiple very disconnected, pocketed neighborhoods. Whereas here, we're seeking to have an interconnected community so that there's multiple ways to walk, bicycle. This would support future transit opportunities when we're looking into the future because there are different densities. They have about 2,300 total units, I think at last count, in Hale. And some of that is included, obviously, in their town center. They have a couple apartment complexes in there. Then they have golf villas. A good amount of land in Hale is consumed by the golf courses going through there. So, relatively speaking, this is just slightly denser than Hale, because they're about 2.7, almost 3 dwelling units per acre, and this is about 3.48 to be exact. So it has a similar sort of open space feel and component. We have the ability in here to have a little bit more retail. Now keep in mind, Hale has 2 retail centers. They have the town center, which is the very compact urban form, very narrow streets, tall, like European curbs. Then they have the village center on the north, which has Publix, Subway. I love New York pizza. I do love New York pizza. Medical center, bakeries, and yoga studios and banks and things like that. We are not proposing to have 2 separate commercial pods. We're proposing to have a concentrated pod. But it isn't dramatically different in planning numbers, and they were years and years ago very slow to ignite. They started in the late 70s, and it took a long time to, get that traction going in that project.
Other Board member questions?
Come on.
Yep. Madam Polo, you got one, or is that Kathy?
I do.
reaching for it?
Yeah, I do.
Miss Kathy, go ahead.
Actually, you answered most of my questions that I had written down. I looked over this packet. I was very interested in knowing how the infrastructure would be met, fire, rescue, the sewer, water, electric. So you've met all those questions thoroughly. I appreciate the work you put into it, and it answered everything I needed to know, and I feel very comfortable with what you presented, that with a 50-year plan, it's not as scary. It's going to give us a lot more time, not me, I won't be here, but it will give, I won't. It'll give the city much more time, and the school board, the county, all these entities that come into play when you plan any community. And I feel like sometimes, and I'm not a professional builder, but I feel like some of the areas that we have had come into our city aren't as well planned for a long term. They're more a short term, let's see how this is going to look. I love how this is a 50-year long-term plan, and I really appreciate the planning that went into it. As a lifelong resident, I live on property my family's been on for over 100 years. It's very important to me to preserve the land, but the growth is coming, and it's great to see something that is this well thought out and dedicated to preserving some part of our history in this city and making something really nice.
Ma'am, we are all going to have a chance to speak, but we are not going to talk over each other. That's the second time I've given that warning. I'm not going to give it a third. So you will have a chance to speak, and we will listen to you respectfully. But we are not going to start screaming out in this chamber.
Yeah,
We are not going to start doing
it's
that.
very hard to talk over me too. I work at the high school as well, so good luck with that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, for Member Thomas's comments. Let me add one thing, because you brought up a good point. If you think about Hale dedicated a school site in Childs on the north side there, just west of the North Village Center. The Oakmont development, which sits at the corner of Parker Road and Southwest 24th Avenue, dedicated a school site in that. So it's very common practice to make that sort of planning. I stood at a podium in Alachua County in 2005 in December and was the designer or planner behind Oakmont. It has still continued to grow, and here we are almost 20 years later. So you see how long these take. And Oakmont has roughly 990 units in it, and it is still going. So it is a good thing to make sure that you have coordinated infrastructure planning and planning for police, fire, emergency services, school, and that's what we're trying to do.
Other board member questions? Madam Polo, go ahead. We will all listen to you respectfully.
Oh, thank you.
Quiet.
That'll be a nice change from my day-to-day life. As Ms. Kathy said, a lot of the questions that I was scribbling as I was hearing presentation were answered. So I do appreciate that. The majority of my questions come at the time of, like, they're not as applicable to the rezoning, like to this particular thing that we're discussing right this second. I do wonder, and I don't think that this will be applicable at this time either, but at what point in this process is a site plan or a proposed site plan going to be made available? I feel like that if people have a better visual of what the layout of this is going to look like and feel like, there might be a little less hesitancy.
Okay.
So I'm just curious where that falls. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great question, Mr. Chair. So, and I'm going to try to do this without getting too many clicks and going right over the top of it. The PD Master Plan sets forth the general geometry and location of elements through the project. So, subsequent to land use and zoning approvals, we would have our first master plan come in And because we have a blend, and as you can see on the chart here, there's a blend of every type of product, okay, with good projections of what number of homes are going to be in each of the phases. Okay, the master plan then will follow, and I'm going to do it very slowly so I don't get so far. So the master plan, as you can see, denotes where the major connections are, and you can see a pair of connections in the orangish or brick-colored area, which is the town center component on 2741 State Road 45. And then you can see the general main collector roads. Each of those sections of land, those little squares up there, are a phase. And so we would come in with the first phase probably within, I'm going to say 4 to 5 months after zoning is done, and it will reflect in each phase the blend of homes. The colors that you see on here denote where stormwater is going to go, because we're going to use the natural topography, and in each phase you can see the purplish or violet colored areas, because each phase has its independent stormwater so that it's grouped for the different home products in the different neighborhoods, but each phase can work very independently and not be reliant on another phase. So those master plans will translate into site plans probably within 4 or 5 months after zoning. And it would move along that spine there and continue to progress, site plan after site, because we want to build more or less a template so that we're continuing to build all the different products for all the buyers in the sectors, of starter homes, executive homes, cottage homes, throughout the entire project.
I think she's still following. No? Finished? Donald?
So I just want to say I appreciate the presentation and the dedicated effort in this project. But one thing a lot of people don't realize, a lot of developers come in, they show us presentations and they give us a layout. But once they get their planning, that's it. And I like to see the concept of the dedicated presence in Newberry, the focus in Newberry, the structure, the layout, everything that helps the city of Newberry stay that.
Okay.
Everybody talks about growing and we worried about it being too big, but this project focus and embodies what Newberry is. Somebody that grew up here, wants us to keep it here, wants to show it here. So to me, I appreciate it. And, you answered most of the questions I had written down with the presentation, but I just wanted to let you know that having a vision of what you want is better than just putting houses and leaving. Like a lot of developers do, they build their homes and they're not worried about people that work here. They're not worried about people that go to school here. They're not worried about anything but building their homes and leaving. So having an idea and a vision of that makes it a lot easier for people to understand that this is not somebody that's just putting homes and making their money. They're actually worrying about the city and the people in the city. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Name?
This is more directed at staff than anything else. So I kept hearing a lot of the attitude of might be, needs to change to, I hear, well, it all depends on what happens. It all depends on this. It all depends on that. So I know the role of government, and this is crazy sounding from a libertarian, the role of government is very reactive. Like, as soon as it's built, we'll build our part. I run the majority of forums on the city or the citizens pages. I coach and I deal with parents all the time. And the biggest issue they have with the city is the fact that we are very reactive versus being proactive. Like, for instance, the school. I know the school doesn't fall back on the city, but yet here we are at 140-something% capacity. We're building more homes. They don't see that they're being bussed in. Their perception is reality. They see a school that's bursting at the seams, and we're building more homes. They can care less how they get here. They see roads that are starting to become very congested, and now we're building 4,000 homes. I understand in 50 years, but I'm looking for the attitude instead of might be to
this is what we are doing. This is what we will be doing. If this goes through, this is our game plan moving forward. This is our fire. This is our wastewater. This is what's going to happen. I don't like the fact of waiting till it happens, and then we have a bunch of pissed off more residents because we took forever. Now they're stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic, even worse because a 2-lane highway is being turned into a 1-lane highway so they can expand it to a 3-way highway. And I know this because I came from Miami, and the Palmetto Expressway has been under construction since I was born 40 years ago. That went from a 2-way highway to a 3-way highway, and it's still going. And every time I go visit, it's still under construction. I don't want that in our city. I want our city to be active. And I don't care how we talk to the state. I don't care how we talk to the county. I'm more inclined to be like, hey, man, this is first off, let me clear that. This is a great the way you guys made this project looks amazing. To Kathy's point, it was the first time I'm like looking at something, I'm like, man, this is really nicely done. But the problem that I'm having is it doesn't fall on the builder, unfortunately. It falls onto our capacity as a city, or as a capacity as a county. We need to keep up, and we're not. We're like 5 steps behind. So how do we change the might be to this is what we are going to do? Sorry, Brian, it's not an attack on you. It's just in general, man. You're just the man on the podium at the moment.
You want me to take that one, Brian? Because I can answer part of the board member questions. But
If you want, Mr. Mayor, you start.
well, I mean, I think that Naeem is making really good points, right? And it's things that we all think about. And we are stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? Because you need the houses to afford the infrastructure. You need the infrastructure to take care of the houses. And it's not fair, in my mind, to ask the existing residents to pay for the infrastructure for the new residents. The existing residents have paid for the infrastructure that they're using, right? So your commission passed impact fees recently, so the new people that are coming in are now paying impact fees on those houses to pay for that infrastructure. So the new infrastructure that is coming is not going to be seen on your tax bill. It's going to be an impact fee. Newberry's done that probably in the developer's mind too early, right? But in the commission's mind, we're right on track. We're right on time, right? We have the two-way pairs coming through. We work really hard with FDOT. That's going to open up the thoroughfare through Newberry. First Avenue will be 2 lanes going westbound. Newberry Road will be 2 lanes going eastbound. I'm not going to say. We're within months of construction on 15th Avenue. We're going to punch that through to 337. That'll create a grid right there. We will begin construction, expanding City Hall, and get all your city offices in one place in the next year. So we are recognizing we are 3-4 years into a massive regional wastewater facility plant that's bringing in High Springs and the city of Archer. Will be better environmentally. It'll allow their residents to help offset our water bills because there's economies of scale. Newberry is at the cutting edge, and I know that you guys hire us to sit here through all these hours of meetings. You don't want to sit through all of this stuff. I get it, but we are doing more for infrastructure. We have AMI at a city of 8,500. Gainesville is just finished their installation. That allows you to read your meter and know in real time what you are using. So this commission that you guys have elected has been nothing but infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. We've paved roads, we fixed roads. We have an app so that you can tell us where the pothole is and we get it fixed within 24 hours. Every city building, every city facility from City Hall to every street light is run off of solar power, and we offer the second lowest utility electric rate in the Alachua County. We offer the lowest water and wastewater utility rate in the county. I know it doesn't feel like it when you open up your bill, but be glad you're not in some of the surrounding cities. And we do that because we got a professional team, we got a professional staff, and we do this in a professional way. So on every single marker and every single category, Newberry is killing it left and right. We are 25% cheaper living in the city of Newberry than it is in Tioga. Our schools are the best. I ask everybody I meet when they come why they came here. They come for the schools, and we want to keep those, and that's why I work to have relationships with every single school board member, whether they like the city of Newberry or not. That's why I work to have relationships with the county, whether they like the city of Newberry or not, because Naeem is right. We do have to have those relationships, and I understand from the residents, you hear about the two-way pairs 5 years ago, and the state still hadn't started, and that's just the speed of government, right, which we all chafe under. But it is coming. I know sometimes we've been hearing about Publix. Publix is going to break ground any day. You're going to drive by and there's going to be bulldozers there, and we're all going to be eating pub subs and living high on the hog soon, right? But I don't think Publix is coming. I think that was a lie. Well, it's just the speed of construction, right? So I think that answered some of your questions. Brian, did I miss anything there?
I certainly couldn't top that, Mr. Chair, but I would like to add too, that is one of the primary benefits and advantages to the city of having a master planned community. It allows us to establish thresholds. The timing is one thing. The 50 years, in my mind, this very well could take longer than that. The timing is what our best guess, what the developer's best guess, what the city's best guess is, how long it would take to be absorbed into the Newberry market. But in reality, that, as was alluded to, that's going to fluctuate. It's going to go up one year, it's going to go down one year, based on national economic trend lines. But when you have a master plan in place that is established, not timing, but thresholds of development, at which stage of development then this road improvement needs to be completed, or this water expansion needs to be done. It gives you a far greater control over those items than if it was one little neighborhood after another being incrementally created, where you don't have a master plan where you know with relative certainty what's coming in the future. The master planning of a large-scale community like this allows you to do that, and it gives you a much better handle. It gives the city a much better tool to work with to have the plans for those improvements already on the books and ready to go when you reach certain thresholds.
Well, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my follow-up to this is we had the discussion or the presentation discussed that the build-out, the percentage is in line. It's 100 100 a year, and it's in line of what the capacity is for our staff, our infrastructure, whatnot. So my concern is, this one's in line, but how does that impact any other surrounding build-outs that are currently approved? Because if we have the Wiesman properties that, are south of DCC starting to work up in the next year or two, and then this project's working up in the next year, then you got Avalon Woods Phase 1000 that's working up. How does that impact the capacity in the city? My biggest thing is I don't want the builder to be strained where they're like, hey, nope, you can only do 80 because all of a sudden we got to make sure we make room for all these other builders. How's the capacity for the city with everything else being developed?
So the city has planned for that growth. We don't reserve capacity at the time of these plans being presented, but it does allow us to, we know it's on the books, we know it has potential to come, and so we have the plans for expansion. Capacity reserved at each individual final plan, so for each phase of development along the way, to guarantee that capacity is available at that moment. But we know in advance, especially, again, with a phasing plan, and even the smaller developments have phasing plans. And so we know this one's about to come online, that one's going to come on in a couple of more years, that one's going to come on in a few more years. And so the staff basically stays on top of that, trying to be as proactive as possible. Again, without all of the communities being part of a master plan, it's a little bit more challenging, but that's what the staff stays on top of, is knowing what's likely to come in the next 3, 5, 10 years and putting the plans in place to accommodate the necessary capacities.
So to follow up on that, the big concern becomes this particular builder. I would take the word that he's building 100. Okay, he hasn't led anybody astray on how much he's going to build. He's been consistent. However, we've been burnt where we said it's a 10-year plan with another XYZ builder, and XYZ builder said, well, you know what, we got so many people wanting to buy that we ended up building this out in less than 3 years versus the 10 years. So all of a sudden you have a 200 home community in 3 years versus 10 years, but yet we have a hometown builder like Norfleet that's committing to 100 a year, and he's, the possibility of someone just overwhelming the city with the capacity issue because they're not keeping up to their end of the bargain. My concern is that capacity, and how are we going to hold them to the fire or to their agreement to make sure that there is room for all this.
There's, perhaps the city manager in terms of the utilities portion will jump in on this, but there are limitations sort of built into the system in terms of you can only get so many DEP permits for water or wastewater. And so you can't get too far ahead of it so that you don't have time to actually address those demands as they come in.
Let me just summarize, because I think what Brian is saying is we have a projection, a chart, and we will know as we get closer to the capacity, and we will stop issuing building permits to slow down the building until we get to the capacity. And when we're out of capacity, you just don't get a building permit. It does not matter, and it's important to hear this tonight, it does not matter if everyone said yes tonight and the magic wand and all got approved. If there wasn't capacity tomorrow, there wouldn't be one house built tomorrow. You can't come in and say, well, you guys approved 4,500 houses, I want to start. If there's no capacity, not one housing permit gets issued. So that there's always that check, right? And it's their job, and Mike, I'll let him speak to it because we hired him because he's an engineer, But that is always the check on the growth, is what is the capacity. Nobody gets to build anything. And we have neighboring communities that have just approved massive developments but don't have the capacity. And they can do that because development cannot begin growing until they answer the capacity issues. Mike, did I miss anything? You want to add anything to that?
That's yeah, well, everything you said is correct. I would remind the board that this applicant is seeking land use amendment and seeking zoning. There are a few other steps that they will have to undergo before they ever pull a building permit. So, that's how capacity goes away, is when we give a building permit. So that, they're going to have to come in and they're going to have to get site and construction plan approval, another bite at the apple, although, they get some entitlements with this. So, the way that we slow or stop things down have to be in accordance with our rules and regulations, but then they have to come and get a plat. So we're not through. And that's really, when someone's asking for a 50-year plan, we don't look at our available capacity at the wastewater plant today and decide thumbs up or thumbs down. It is you understand, Mr. Developer, that when you get these entitlements, that when you come in for a plat, that's when we're going to check our water and wastewater plant capacity and our school capacity. And if we have it, we'll approve your plat for 100 homes to be built and no more. And if we don't have it, we'll say sorry until we get more capacity. We're not going to be able to issue approval on this plat. So there are more checks coming down the road when we give them certain entitlements with this approval, if that's what this board and then the city commission agree to do. But the one thing that we can't do, to your original question, or we shouldn't do, it's not best practice to look at each development in a vacuum, which is what we're doing tonight. We're looking at this one development in a vacuum, decide what its impacts are, and require them to construct those impacts today without considering what else is going on. Because, at the end of the day, when this development puts traffic out on State Road 45, it currently has trips on it today. There's, it's about 7,000 trips a day coming in to town on that highway, and it's probably rated for 20,000 trips. So at some point, those trips, when they're developing phase 5, that 7,000 trips a day existing will be much higher. It'll be 15,000 or 18,000, and then we may need to 3-lane or 4-lane that highway. So we're going to look at the capacity improvements at the time that they seek building permit, because otherwise we would be speculating. We don't want to build capacity, 20 years before it's necessary. We want to get capacity online just in time for when it's needed, and we got to consider the impacts of all.
Because when you say we don't want to get it on early, it's because we have to pay for it early, right?
Correct,
And
yeah.
we want the people that are causing the impact to be paying right at the time that it's coming in,
Correct.
so that we're not offsetting it on existing residents.
You're exactly right.
And
we
I've
wanna-
heard Mike's gentle slap on my wrist to get us
Yeah.
back on future land use. So let's finish. If you had another follow-up question, this, and we'll finish out this one,
Sure.
but then we'll get back on future land use.
But we're looking at this in a vacuum now, and when we plan for infrastructure, we can't afford to do that. Then we'll look at all the developments, including the existing impacts, to see, so that we do bring it online at the appropriate time. And I would say that, today, we have some areas, so we'll talk about traffic, we have some congestion areas, but it's still not gridlock 2 hours on an interstate like we have in Orlando, and we'll make those improvements that the mayor spoke to. We'll make them well ahead of it becoming 2-hour gridlock. So I think our commission is doing a terrific job of anticipating where these problems are going to be, making sure that we build them just in time to address capacity shortages that we may encounter.
So on the capacity, last but not least, is the staffing concern on the building permits with the excess of everything that's going on. I mean, 200 permits a year per se. I mean, that's a strain on the staff. How does that influx into the city as far as bringing on more? Because the thing is, I don't want them to start issuing permits and not actually because they're in such a strain to get it out. They're just pushing them out versus actually doing their due diligence. So that's like I said, last but not least, is the staffing concerns.
Our building official is a licensed professional, that if he takes shortcuts, he jeopardizes his license and he jeopardizes his livelihood. So we ask all of our professionals to do that. A professional engineer, a professional accountant, conduct your work in a professional manner that doesn't jeopardize your license. But we're not going to hire on staff now believing that we're going to get to 500 permits a year in a decade and that you'll be busy. We generally bring staff on a little bit late. If it's we're seeing a run right now, we're doing a little more permits than we typically do. We're not going to staff up for that because it may end in 2 months if we have a turn down. We'll make sure it's real and consistent before we make a recommendation to the city commission that, hey, we're going to have staff up. The other thing we do is, and this happens all the time, technology jumps in there and eliminate need for staffing. So when we employ technology in the building department, a technician that used to could do 10 plans a month by hand now has tools available to them where they can crank out 30. So if we staff up way too soon, we'll have a big staff on our hand that's capable of reviewing 2,000 plans a month, but we don't get anywhere submitted to that. So when technology comes along, like AMI that the mayor mentioned, we just freed up a whole crew that used to read meters for a whole week every month. We don't use them on that anymore, so I won't hire a new lineman that we thought we would need 2 years ago because we just freed up a whole crew and they can shift over into that job. So we try to bring infrastructure online just in time. We try to bring staff online probably just behind time. Rather work a few extra hours of overtime than to have staff sitting around with nothing to do until the workload catches up to our staffing.
Okay, these are good questions and good conversations for everybody here, but we've left future land use way behind at this point. So I'm going to bring us back to future land use and encourage everybody to come back to the budget sessions next summer where we will talk about staffing and all of those kinds of things. Other questions from the board? If there aren't any questions, I need a motion in order to open it up to public comment. Before I ask for a motion, I want to remind you that this is the most complex, very well done presentation to answer a lot of those questions. It's the most complex development we've ever had. We said at the beginning, we are okay if we need to come back and do this again because we need that time. If you think you've got everything that you need, that's fine too. It's completely up to you, but I don't want anyone hesitating saying, hang on one second. I don't want anyone thinking, we've got to take action tonight, but I do want to say we're down to 4, right? So I want everybody to be clear about the ramifications of a vote, right? If you vote to table it, that's fine. We can still have public comment as soon as we have a motion on the floor. if you vote to pass or deny it and it's 2-2, the motion dies, and then we're in kind of a pickle. So if we think we want to vote to not table it, to approve or deny, I would ask for a little bit of a head nod before we get there, and that way we could give our missing P and Z member a chance to come back, so we avoid the opportunity of a tie out of fairness, right? So, thoughts? Are we ready to make a motion to approve, a motion to deny, a motion to table? We can still have public comment with the motion table. Normally you wouldn't, but we got a lot of people here wanting to speak. So, or do we have more questions? Okay, I have a motion to approve from Board Member Long and a second from Ms. Kathy. Okay, any comments or questions from the dais on the motion on the floor? Okay, that leads to public comment. If you would, please make a line here. Every member will have 2 minutes to speak. Please say your first and your last name for the record, right? And then we'll take all the public comments. And wait, give us 30 seconds for, do we want to take a bio break real quick? Yes? Okay, let's take a 5-minute, or let's take a 3-minute bio break, just enough time to go to the bathroom. We put 3 minutes on the clock. Don't go too far. There's a bathroom back there. right, guys, if you can start making your way back to the seats, and if I could get the P&Z board members to start making their way back up here. I gave an extra minute because it seemed like there was a line at the bathroom. So let's start making our way back. All right, board member Long, if I can get you back up here. Naeem, I thought I saw you head out there to talk. If I can get you back up. And I think we have both ladies in different restrooms. I will make Brian. Will we be posting this on our website after the meeting? Posting their presentation. Yeah. All right, Naeem, if I can get you to come on back up, we're going to try to get started again. We're just trying to get everybody. It's like we're herding cats right now. Herding cats. She'll be right here. All right. And I don't know if we lost a couple people, so if you're in the back, there may be, you might want to peek your head in here and see if there's some seats. They may have left their hat on there because they decided to run across and get a taco. And we'll just give a second here for Miss Kathy to get here. If, Missy, if you will you got 2 minutes on the clock. Again, if you'll state your name. Now I feel bad. Everybody's quiet. Miss Kathy's going to walk in, you know.
Everybody round of applause.
That's just how much we appreciate all those peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, Miss Kathy. Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, I should have said, if you were not at the Newberry Chamber banquet, we have at our presence this year's Citizen of the Year winner right here, Miss Kathy Thomas. If you've never had one of her peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and I don't think if you've graduated at Newberry High School in the past 5 years, you've not had one of those because she feeds everybody.
I do, but I have to add real quick, the Methodist Church donates most of the peanut butter and jelly and the bread. So I have to say that the women at the Methodist, well, the members at the Methodist Church, I go through about 3 loaves of bread a day. So they donate a lot. So when you see somebody from the Methodist Church, just say thank you.
Yeah.
It's not me.
I try to make sure all my students are fed, but, teenagers, there's no end to, no end to how much they can eat. Okay, so we're at public comment. Come on down. First and last name, if you will. Tell us what you think. Tell us if you like it. Tell us if you don't like it, what your concerns are. I just want to make clear that this is not a back and forth, so if you have questions, we've got people over here that are taking notes. We may not be able to answer it tonight, but we will get all of the answers. Welcome, sir. Give us your name.
Good evening. My name is Michael Terry. I've been a resident of Newberry since 1998, but my family has been in the Newberry area since 1853. I own property right across US 27 from this proposed area. I own 35 acres that's been in my family for 7 generations. I also own 10 acres that's adjacent to that, that's shortly outside of the 400 feet. I did not receive a letter to my personal residence, but I did receive one for the agricultural land that I own. This is a huge project. No one in this room will be here to see the end of this project. More likely than not. This is a huge decision the 5 of you make for this community for the next half century in just one meeting. There's a bunch of people here that probably left already because all of that took too long. It's not fair to them or the kids that will be raised in this community over the next 50 years, or their kids, or the next 6 generations of people that will grow up in this area, because those decisions won't be something that they have any choice in. I understand that we have appointed you to make those decisions for our generations of kids and the future of this community. And I appreciate the Northfleet family for what they've done in this community for the last 20 years. Something Brian Thomas and I had talked about the other day on the phone. The swings of the economy are going to, as they've shown in the plan, you're going to see different amounts of homes built every year. But in the last 25 years, since Countryway was originally planned, pretty sure it was also developed in a quicker manner than it was actually planned to be, and that's one of the reasons why our city is in this certain situation it's in. The infrastructure, the town needing more school space, even if kids are zoned in from Newberry or outside of Newberry or not. If those residents that live in Newberry are only taking up small portions of that area, that should be something that's considered deeply, not just on 1 meeting or 2 meetings. This is a drastic decision for this community. I am against it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, and I want to just, while we're waiting for somebody else to come up, the P&Z is a recommendation board. The commission is the voting board, and there's going to be a lot of meetings about this. So you'll have this meeting. We have another item tonight. We may have another P&Z meeting if this board asks for it. There'll at least be 2 commission meetings, and then we haven't even got into plating and all the other things. So there's no decision is going to be made at 1 meeting. There's a whole long process here, just to make sure everybody's clear on that. You waited all this time. Now, come on. Don't be shy. There you go, sir. That's a trip hazard on this side of the room, okay? So if you get up over here, be extra careful.
My name's Steve Baker. My wife's Judith here. We lived here in Newberry area for 40 years, right here off of 46th Avenue. We have no animosity against the folks wanting to develop it, and I've herded their cows numerous times back to home. But this is a big, big project. You know, back in the 1800s, Newberry was a booming phosphate town, but it's also considered a wild, wild west at the time. And here we are today, it's another boom town phase, but wild, wild west is unbridled development. I like to hear the intent. The intent's fantastic. However, intent's not guaranteed. And it's not always like you really intended it to come out. Yesterday I went over there by the other Countryway development, the new one, just to look around. And, it had intent. But, I asked, why are all the cars parking on the sidewalks? There's not enough parking. You have these small units with multiple occupants that have vehicles. And so you see that kind of activity. So things might have to be changed as far as those go, their intent. But you can't plan like this 50 years into the future. I think it's the city commission's and plan board's job to be the gatekeepers, not to just turn the keys over to a large chunk of the city to a developer that, maybe down the road, things change and their family sells portions of this. There's multiple parcels involved in this property, I think close to 15 or so. But if things start to go out incrementally and then you lose the original intent, how do we control that once we, it's Pandora's box. You have no control. That's my statement.
Thank you, sir. Other comments? And just for the record, I want to remind folks, I did ask the applicant if he was willing to put pacing in the writing, and he said he would. So that would help, and capacity is a control as well. Come on down, ma'am. I'm just trying to, it's not a question and answer, but I know sometimes people are frustrated when I said something and nobody responded back. So go ahead.
I live in 46.
Will you give us your name, please?
My name's Marta Pedrosa. Came from Miami.
There you go.
Made in South Beach. By the jetty in the water. Anyway, I live on 46th Street, 26910 Northwest 46th Avenue, I'm sorry. I moved here because I wanted a slow, quiet community. So what I want to know is, what's going to happen with 46th Avenue? Are you guys going to?
You need to address your comments up here, man.
Okay. What's going to happen with 46th Avenue is there going to be entrances and exits on 46th Avenue? Are we going to have a lot of traffic there? Are they going to open the street on 27th, State Road 2741? How is that? Because I didn't hear anything of that, and I need it. I need to know. That's what happened to me in Miami. I lived on 84th Avenue and 27th Lane, residential area, and all of a sudden, they're going 80 miles an hour, running the four-way stop sign that was supposed to be in my street, and having all kinds of accidents. I've had to put lime rock by my parking lot and my parking space, because you have no idea how many times I've almost been hit. One time I had to jump in my truck head first, and lucky that I had a tree. So that's my question.
Thank you.
Yep. So what?
We will talk about that in the next one. And this isn't a question and answer.
When is the next one going to be?
In about whenever you guys are done asking questions right now, or making statements. And I think actually what happened is you and Naeem started bragging about Newberry, and you brought 5,000 people from Miami with you. I think that's what happened. Yeah. Shh. We had a secret. Other public comments. Come on down.
My name is Bob Muni, and the fact is that over the next 50 years, those houses are going to get built, whether it's with a master plan or piecemeal, where you've got 100 houses here, 200 houses there, and all the concerns that I'm hearing are valid, but they're exacerbated when you have piecemeal and not a master plan. The best thing you can have is the control and the dedication of a well-thought-out master plan and not the piecemeal. So I'm for it.
Thank you, sir. Come on down, sir.
All right. I'm Jesse Jones. Most of you know me, some of you don't. I've been living in this city almost 54 years, give or take a few months when my dad was in the military and we were gone. So, yeah, pretty local. I went to the elementary school, kindergarten, first grade, graduated from Newberry High School, and was pretty happy to find an opportunity in my local community where I was able to go from a small business owner to a supervisor to a project manager to a superintendent for Mr. Norfleet. And I was hoping that, we could be able to continue growing in this fashion that we are. I think he's got a well thought out plan for the city. It's not just about the Norfleets. Like he said, it's more about a legacy that they're going to leave behind, and it's not just leaving something behind for the Norfleets themselves, but also for the city of Newberry. So I hope that, we can move forward with that and encourage some more local opportunities in this area, as well as, some of the growth for potential of commercial, especially doctors and things like that this town has been lacking for quite a long time. So, I think we're all for it around this area, and I think, we should be able to answer some of the questions of some of these naysayers. One of the guys that spoke before me, I used to employ his father. He was pretty happy to have a job in this area and work for the Norfleets back then, and I understand that, there may be some difficulties with something like that growing near you, or seems like right on top of you, but like you've heard before, it's going to grow whether we're on board or not on board. So we've seen some of the tract homes and the national builders come in here and kind of leave a bad taste in some of the people's mouths. So we hope you guys will be in cooperation with us and kind of move forward with things on that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Missy, will you check the thermostat? I think we're trying to save energy, and now it's getting hot in here. I think it went up.
Trying to stay in the budget.
Yeah, we're trying to stay in the budget, but
My name's Alan Tyner. I too am a local Newberry guy, born and raised here, 5 generations. Yeah, we've been around. Graduated from here. I think it's a great opportunity we have before us. If you look at the map, I'm the little square on the north side. It's around me. I have no problem with it. I'm employed there. I have went through the ranks. I started out on the farm. I had my own business for a while farming. Went to them, started out on a farm. I now do underground utilities. I do surveying. I do a lot of different things for them. They've given me opportunities that I never thought that I could have. My sons have worked for them. I have a son now that works for them. I think it's great that we are hiring local people. I know there's a lot of people against it, but we all have to make a living somehow. This is a great opportunity. I'm part of what we're doing. I know how it's planned out. I know how it works. I think it is going to be a great thing for our city. Our city's going to grow inevitably, whether we're with it or not. It's going to happen. We've already seen it. So let's do it with the local guys. Everybody talks about let's spend money locally. Here's your opportunity. Give it to the local people, not the national guys that's going to haul it out of here and leave. That's how I feel. I'm for it 100%. I think the businesses coming is going to be a great thing for Newberry. I think the residents will be a great thing. I interact with our residents every day. They're great people. They come here looking for what we have. They want what we were blessed with. I think we share it with them. So therefore, I'm for it.
You say that even by the ones that came from Miami?
Yeah, even the ones that came from Miami, we'll give it to them.
All right. Just checking. Come on down, sir.
My name is Lee Smith. I own a local business in town, and I would just like to stress the importance of local businesses, supporting local businesses. I started 17 years ago in Newberry. Didn't have a whole lot going on. I was the only shop in town, and if it hadn't been for certain local businesses supporting me, I don't know that I would have made it, because it was a different time back then. I graduated from Newberry. My kids graduated from Newberry. I'm fourth generation. I just appreciate the fact that local people want to do things in our community, and I think it's a great idea. I really appreciate the fact that they want to put money back into our infrastructure and back into our community and support it in that way. So I just thank you for your time and appreciate y'all.
Thanks for the lights in the gym too, RPM. We appreciate it.
To me. Hello, my name is Jackson Dawson. I'm Vice President of Dawson Plumbing. About a year ago, me and my father, I started the business with, we're kind of looking at each other looking for some work, and we got a call from the Norfleets looking for some plumbing help. And I can tell you in that time, we've been blessed with what they offer for the community. I was born in Jonesville, raised in Newberry, going to playing baseball, football, everything, graduated from Newberry High School. I've watched as everything from Jonesville to here has been growing this way. And I can tell you that I've been working in construction from the time I could work to this day. I'm 28 years old, and I can tell you I've worked for some builders that do not care, and I've worked for builders that do care, and I can tell you that the Norfleet family does care. One thing I can speak for is the quality of the people, not only that they are, but the people that they employ. The other tradesmen I get to work with every day, they are good people, masters of their trade. They believe in attacking this in a slow and calculated fashion, and I'm right behind them. And for anybody that, I look at it, I'm 28 years old. This is a 50-year project. I may not see the end of it, but I sure hope to. And whenever I look at that, I get to work with Christianity and Zeke every single day. And I can tell you that if there's any questions on whether or not they can handle it, they can absolutely handle it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And it's good to see you. It's been a while. Come on down.
All right. My name's Trey Stankunas. Real name's Frank Stankunas Jr. I work with Silverback Concrete. I've played Pee Wee football in Newberry. Went to high school here. Played on the football team. I was here in 2013 when what's his name? I can't remember his name. Anyways, they called Mooney for a block in the back. Cost us the freaking semi-state game. It was not cool, you know. But I will say that
I was standing right there. I remember it.
I was.
Marlo on the field.
Marlo was there. But yeah, so gentleman left. But man, there's 12, 15 young men and ladies in here. We'll be here in 50 years. We'll be doing jumping jacks 15 years, to be honest with you. But so we all work. No, maybe I'll be doing quarters. But we work with the Norfleets here. We do all their concrete work here. I'll tell you this. We have many families with just us as a sub of the Norfleets that depend on the work that he provides us. And it's, I mean, anything from driving a truck to laying down the concrete to working with a shovel. We get young men from Newberry and Trenton and Bell, all these high schools. We need this, we want it, and that's it.
He did a good job. Look, see that's Newberry, right? Everybody said, no, you
How y'all doing?
No, you go first.
Mark Allen. I just want to say I'm Newberry graduate, so been here all my life. I just want to say I think this is great for the city of Newberry. I know Mr. Norfleet's passion and his family passion for the city of Newberry. I've had countless conversations with him privately where he always talks about Newberry and supporting Newberry. And having him employ us allows me actually to give back to local schools and things of that nature. So him giving all of us jobs it trickles down right back into the community. You know, my mechanic is here. He poured a slab at my house. We all work together. You know, it's a local economy. We all support each other. And he's the main reason why all of us can be here. So I'm full support of it, and I think it'd be great for our community. So thank y'all.
Come on down.
All right, my name is Eric. I'm not a speaking type person, but I'm originally...
Last name for the record.
Last name is DeSue. I'm originally not from Newberry, but I have been living over here. I've been working over here for about like maybe 20 or 30 years for Norfleet. Yeah, but for the last, 2, 3, going on 3 years, I've been living over here. And if it weren't for the Norfleet family, give me an opportunity. We hired many guys from out of Gainesville that came over here. He gave us an opportunity and all like that. I'm all for this because this is a real good company. I came a long way with this company, and they opened up my eyes a lot on a lot of things. So I'm all for this, 100%.
Just come on down and stand behind him, Anna. You'll be all right. You just got to get a little closer. There we go.
Hey, my name's Chris Whitfield. I've been in the area for since '98, and I have a window and door company. Sell windows and doors to a lot of builders. Yes, Trip Norfleet's a real good customer of ours. Been working with him a long time. So I get to meet a lot of builders. I get to see a lot of developments. Get to meet a lot of people that are in his shoes, and I can tell you he's the kind of guy that's got a lot of integrity. He really cares about his people, cares about the town. I just can't say anything bad about him or his family. Zeke and Christiane are both real good. I think they kind of see his future plans, and I'm sure they're on board. But just a great plan, a master plan. You can't beat that. Big builders like national builders, I mean, they don't invest back into the local economy. You know, they do. A lot of the subcontractors that they use, they don't even employ from this area. Everybody they employ is local. So I support it. Just wanted to say thank you all for your time.
Thank you, sir. As a minor, you do not have to say your name unless you want to.
Oh, okay. I was planning on doing it. When did my little timer start?
Oh my God, her honesty is just like amazing.
Citizens of Newberry, my name is Anna McGeehee, and I come before you today to explain the problems associated with the planned building of the ranch at Country Way. Newberry used to be endless green hills owned by humble farmers and is now becoming a sea of rooftops. This land is valuable, and these houses are taking away the history, values, and breathing room that Newberry offers. I strongly support the idea that landowners should be able to do what they want to with their property. The problem is the 4,500 proposed homes on 1,293 acre. According to the U.S. Census, the population of Newberry in 2021 was 7,662 residents. If only one person was living in each of these homes, the population increases by 58%. What about our schools? As a freshman at Newberry High School and a former student of NES and OVMS, I know firsthand that our schools cannot handle this rapid increase in population. Our school board has shown very meager attempts to solve the overcrowding of our schools and likely don't plan to do so anytime soon. If the applicant wants to contribute to Newberry, I suggest that they build a much-needed school. What about water and wastewater? We're in the process of expanding our wastewater system to handle demand for the next 20 years. Does this development fit into that plan, and if not, what will be done by the developer to mitigate their impact? What about the fire department? Will this many homes require us to expand our capabilities beyond what we are already planned? These are questions that I hope you will get solid answers for so that it will minimize the impact on our current citizens. Selfishly, I don't want to see this happen at the expense of my grandparents' farm. That land has been in our family for 4 generations and is right across the street from the proposed neighborhood. I hope to inherit this land and came to this meeting to be a voice for those who will be around if and when this plan is completed. Do I just stop?
You can wrap, if you ever got one more sentence, you can wrap it up.
No, I'm done.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Takes an awful lot of courage at that age to stand up and speak your mind, and very eloquently. Come on down, sir.
Jason McGee, citizen, and that's why I'm coming up here, because I am super proud of that kid.
And you should.
She heard us discussing about it. She and her mom heard us discussing about it, and on the way to taking her to school yesterday, she said, "Dad, can I go up there and speak?" I told her, "You're a citizen of this city. You definitely can go up there and speak." And she's got her own opinions. Look, I know, I've sat up there. I know this is going through. The only thing I'm asking is, let's just make sure that we get everything airtight, in stone, and with it being a 50-year plan, what I would like to see is something that Board Member Urchin said, to make a change, and I know this is something that I'm going to have to bring up before the commission, but to make a change, a significant change to this PD, you would need either a supermajority or a unanimous vote. I'm not saying you can't make any changes, but because I know things will come up, situations change, but if we're going to go ahead and set this, and let's set it in stone, and that way the city can be able to build out like we need to. That's another thing I'm worried about. I know we say we have these plans, we're going to be able to not put the burden on the utility ratepayers that we have right now. I want to make sure we really sharpen our pencil when it comes to that, because that's one thing I'm worried about is, we've got all this extra capacity being added to a wastewater facility that, we just, we're in the process of expanding. So I appreciate your time, and great job, Anna.
Absolutely. One proud father right there, and should be. Had to be a product of Oakview Middle School English education right there.
I like to add that she does very well at her debate competitions, and as you can see, she is excellent at public speaking.
Always good to see the future. Anybody else? come on down. Don't forget, folks, we have a whole quasi-judicial after this. You get a whole other round to get up and talk again, so we're going to take a motion here. Everybody's going to get up and start leaving. You're welcome to do that, but there is a third item on the agenda tonight. Go ahead.
Lucky, I'm limited to 2 minutes. My name is Brett Williams. I am from this area. I do a lot of business in this area. I cater in this area, but I actually live in Jonesville. There's been a lot of conversation about Norfleets as people, and I think that's great because they do invest in the community, but the smarter question is, what does it do to define your community going forward? And you can either have it be haphazard, or you can take advantage of an organization that has systemically and historically invested in you as individuals. I don't work for him. I'm just telling you, I sit here and I listen, I saw things on Facebook, and I hear people getting excited and nervous about what this means for me. Well, if I came here and I got mine, you can't have yours. I don't think that's Newberry's motto or its approach to life. I got mine, you can have yours. By God, there's a lot of it out there. And if we go at it in a systemic and planned fashion, then it can be beautiful and successful for everyone. And if you do it, pardon my French, half-ass, then that's what you get.
Thank you, ma'am. Other public comment? Anybody? Come on down, sir. Don't trip. We're patient.
Why do you keep saying Tripp's name?
My name's Bubba Bays, or Dale. Nobody knows Dale.
Yeah.
I'm not going to refer to him as Mr. Norfleet. That's Tripp, or Tripper. I graduated Newberry in 85, class of 85.
Undefeated.
That was 83.
Oh, sorry. You were still there.
Still there.
Yeah, you
we're
were
going to talk about 85.
Yeah.
I left and went to college. Spent 12 years in Atlanta. I'll match your traffic any day. I came back because I couldn't stand the big city. I came back to Gainesville. I was working in Jacksonville and glad to be back in Gainesville and driving to Jacksonville every day for 2 years. I happened through Newberry and I saw the Norfleet home sign. And I said, I bet I know who that is. And I gave Tripp a call, and I know he didn't remember me. We played football together. He probably hit me harder than anybody else he's hit in this room. But I knew we knew the same people, and he'd give me a chance. And he gave me a chance. And over the last 6 years, I've become a small business owner. I employ the better half of 20 people. All but one of my employees either live in the city limits of Newberry or within 5 miles of the city. A lot of other people here can't say that. And I'd like to see this go through because Tripp really, as your sign says, Tripp believes in Newberry as much as we do. And he's about Newberry and always has been. His family is. And he's not here trying to rape the community. He's here trying to make it a better place and a place that I left Newberry when I graduated because I didn't want to pick watermelons for a living. I didn't want to bale hay for a living. And that's all there was around here. There's opportunity here now that never existed before, and he's trying to make it where you can go to college and come back and work here now, or you can stay and work. And that's something that Newberry really hasn't had in the past, but I'm for it.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Anybody? You're pondering on it? All right, we're going to close out public comment then. Come back to the board. Does the board come up with any other questions or comments before we take a vote? The motion on the floor is to approve the application for future land use. Next item will be rezoning. No further questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. I done forgot where we're at. No. All right. We're going to be entering into a quad. Don't go anywhere now. The fun starts just now.
For the record on the quasi-judicial, before we start, are we going to have to go through the whole application process again, or can we just?
No,
Okay, thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're entering into a quasi-judicial procedure. This means that the commission will stop being a legislative body and will become a judicial board, which means we have to follow certain rules and adhere to a different standard of decision-making. The primary rule must follow concerns testimony, and the substantial and competent evidence standard must be met when the judicial board makes a decision. This standard states the following, and I quote, "All public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into evidence. The giving of opinion testimony is limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record." I'm going to ask the city attorney now to read into the record the ordinance by title only and number.
Guys.
That's true.
This is ordinance number 2023-24, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the rezoning of approximately 1,293 contiguous acres, more or less, pursuant to a petition by the property owner of said acreage, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from the Agricultural A zoning district to the Plan Development PD zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, more particularly described in Exhibit A, providing for severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm also going to ask you if you would now swear in the applicant, staff, and anybody here requesting to speak. It's not during public comment, but if you want to speak during testimony, we got to swear you in. Just want to give a public comment, you don't have to be sworn in. But if you would please rise. Tripp, go ahead and stand up just in case. Mike, go ahead and stand up just in case. Okay, would you go ahead and swear everybody in? And Missy's taking notes back there, so just say your name loud so she can hear you.
All right, we'll go around the room and say names first, and then I'll swear you all in at the same time.
Mike Nude,
Brian Thomas.
Jerry Diedenbach.
Trip Norfleet.
All right, do you all swear or affirm that the testimony you give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we begin, we need to disclose any ex parte communications and disclose whether any member physically inspected the property. Ex parte communications are any conversations or transmission of information that may have bearing or influence on any voting member's decision. What? Well, I was going to actually start. I usually work that way, but I can start with you. Board Member Urchin.
I've had some communication with the applicant. I also had communication with the staff, with the mayor. However, any communication I have has no weight or bearing on my decision-making. I've also seen plan sites for the location, and like I said, has no bearing on my decision or vote tonight.
Madam Attorney, you have any follow-up questions? Thank you.
I also had our communication with the applicant, but anything we discussed doesn't have any bearing on my decision-making tonight.
Any follow-up questions? Ms. Kathy?
I also have had discussions with the applicant, but they're not applicable to anything for me tonight either.
Okay. Board Member Polo?
We've had no communication.
Okay. I'm a non-voting mayor, non-voting chair here, but I have had all the same conversations with staff as well, right? Okay. So I'm going to explain the order of presentations that we're going to follow for the only quasi-judicial item before us tonight. First, we're going to hear staff overview, and this is going to be a little bit moderated because we heard the bulk of the presentation in the last one. I don't think we have too much to add, but we will add a few things. So we'll hear a staff overview first, then we'll hear from the applicant. There is no time limit. Then we'll hear staff's report along with staff's recommendation, also with no time limit. I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status. That's going to take us to public comment. Any members of the public wishing to speak to this agenda item will have 3 minutes to do so. Then the applicant can cross-examine, staff can cross-examine. And then members of the decision-making body, through the chair, can ask questions of staff, the applicant, or any of the participants. Final arguments will then be made by the applicant and the staff related solely to the evidence and testimony that is presented during the hearing and introduced into the record. Then the city attorney will advise the decision-making bodies the applicable law and the factual findings that have to be made to approve or deny the application. Then the board will deliberate, and after deliberations, a motion will be taken to approve with conditions, continue, or deny. Again, same caveat, right? Rezoning is a little bit more intense than future land use. So everybody here is free and clear, and open to take any time that they need. If you feel like you need more time, great. If you feel like we've covered it all and we're ready to move to the commission, fine as well. With that, Brian, you want to give an overview? Or do you think we've already kind of?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was actually going to say that the staff report for the rezoning is essentially the same as it was for the land use, and therefore staff requests to have the presentation already given serve as the presentation for the rezoning and yield to the applicant for their
Do you want to go ahead and
presentation.
give the recommendation now, or do you want to wait till after the presentation?
The staff's recommendation would be to recommend approval to the city commission for the rezoning of the 1,300 acres for the NC Ranch.
Okay, thank you. Jerry, you want to come up? And guys, during this one, the reason why he may give more is now it's a little bit more appropriate to talk about roads, to talk about some of the other things that weren't necessarily applicable in future land use.
Good evening again, Jerry Diedenbach. I was going to ask Ms. Boyce if she would make a statement here, since we are in the QJ portion of this, and make sure that everything that we've done during the course of the land use is incorporated in the record, but she will do it much more eloquently than I.
I don't know about that.
Well,
It's kind of late at night. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I just wanted to move into the record of the rezoning hearing, the record that you created this evening in the land use hearing. So that entirety, the presentations, the PowerPoints, the public comments will all move into the record of the rezoning, which will be competent, substantial evidence to support whatever decision you make and possibly save us some time.
Indeed, thank you. So in the interest of saving time, a lot of what we explained to you covered both the land use, and we had a lot of detail in there about the zoning. And we did that hopefully as a courtesy to you all and to everyone in the audience. And I heard someone say that, oh, well, that's all they're doing. I don't need to stay. I get it now. So hopefully we'll all have a similar sort of experience here. And I'm having the same experience right now with this clicker. All right.
Don't click it too many times because it'll go all the way to the end.
So, as you've seen, now let me emphasize some of the things that are specific to the zoning, and I want to also answer a couple questions if the folks are still here. Yes, they are. Because there are some good questions that are more relevant to the zoning. So the density on this property of 1,293.23 acres, more or less, is about, as you see, 4,500 total homes at a density of 3.48 dwelling units per acre. And we are talking about 800,000 square feet of non-residential development in a town center form. We showed you during the land use the specific zoning table, okay, and that is the bond that puts forth the phasing and the pace of the project. And so you've seen here clearly that there will be approximately 100 homes annually over the project life cycle. I'm not going to ask Mr. Norfleet to get up here and state his intentions again. I think those are clearly identified, and that's the reason I'm standing here, because of his good intentions. So this timeline, okay, now, based on your recommendation and hopeful second motion this evening, we'll send this forward to the City Commission, and then it will go to the state of Florida. There was a comment that was made during the course of the future land use map amendment that we talked about. And as I stated before, to best prepare the development agreement, we're going to take the things that you have said this evening and comments that have come from citizens, both for and against this project, and incorporate that into a document that is much more detailed. And once the City Commission sees that, and once we get comments from the state of Florida, there will be a development agreement that comes back so that you know there's a lock-in on this. And the things like road paving, turn lanes, infrastructure, water, sewer, school seats, police, fire, and ambulance are hard-coded in that. Today, we don't know that because the City Commission may do something different or may ask us to have some latitude in the overall development program. And so we didn't want to prematurely bring that developer's agreement to you, not knowing everybody's opinion on this. So as you saw, this is an 8-phase project, approximately 100 homes per year over a 50-year life cycle. So I would imagine, if I were to do my math, the first construction that could happen out here would probably be in the year 2025, because it'll take us a while to get through the completion of the land use and zoning, then site plans, then platting, and that gets you, out into 2025. So we have obligated and proposed to provide biannual reporting to the city so that continued coordination will occur for all infrastructural and then school capacity issues. This is a great planning tool to allow timed strategic growth in the community. As you saw, the project sits on State Road, US Highway 41, 2745, and we are requesting to go from a zoning of agriculture to planned development. In that planned development, as we've stated before, this property is well suited for urban type development and is within the urban services area of the city of Newberry. The property has appropriate soils for the type of development proposed upon here, residential and mixed use development. Specific to the PD master plan on here, and there was a question that a lady asked at the beginning of the public comment, there will be attachment points or connections, entrance and egress on 46th on the north. So roadway improvements to that portion of the project would be planned into this. That would take coordination with Alachua County since it's currently under their jurisdiction, and improvements to that road would occur in time with the phases. We do plan to start this at the southern and eastern portion of this. That's kind of the brick color down here in phases 1 and 2. And impacts to 46th would not occur until later in the development program, because the plan is to build along the state highway toward the city and then start to build back up. And there is a planned sewer connection. We have, during the course of our due diligence, spoken to other landowners to the south of us who are very interested in what will happen here and are also interested in the provision of utilities across their properties. So we already have confident abutting neighbors to the south that would agree to allow water and sewer connections to enhance the city's overall utility infrastructure through there. So we've addressed that during the course of our due diligence. Okay. As far as traffic goes, this project has a traffic study that is a part of your application. Impacts, as were stated in staff's presentation, aren't anticipated for several years into the future, but with the biannual reporting, we will constantly monitor that and report that back to the city and coordinate with the Florida Department of Transportation, who primarily owns the jurisdictional roads that will be fed from the connections of this project onto the state highway. So I can conclude there. You've seen our application goals and you've heard Mr. Norfleet's why he wants to do that. I would like to ask and give Christiana Norfleet an opportunity to speak to this, because it's very interesting to see how the future is coming forward tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Don't go far.
2 steps.
How's everybody doing? It's been a long night. I am very excited to be here.
Yeah.
So I just want to make that clear that I am very excited about this, and I really appreciate y'all taking this time. I know it's a lot of time, but we really appreciate it. Me and my brother Zeke, we are all in on this project. We're in from the beginning to the end. Hope I live that long, like some of the other ones said, but we're all in. We're excited. And I love to work. I know that sounds strange, but I do. I enjoy it. And I enjoy what we do. I love doing things for Newberry. I love the Christmas on the Square that we get to do, the rodeo. And, you know, if anybody thinks I work hard, my brother works a lot harder. So we're ready. I mean, we're ready for this project. We're ready to make it great. We want it to be great for Newberry. And we want something here that is good for Newberry, for everyone to be able to enjoy. And it's a beautiful place for Newberry. And another thing on the agriculture, I love agriculture probably more than anybody. And I work cows, I ride horses, I have some cow dogs. And, you know, I love that aspect too, just as much as I love the construction and all the events that we do. So, again, thank y'all for y'all's time, and we really are excited about this.
Thank you. Jerry, is that the end of the presentation? While we're in the presentation mode, could you speak a little bit more? Because there were a couple of questions about the roads, the connection to 266. I think you were talking about 46 And then you did talk about the sewer line being able, you've already worked out agreements. Anything else about the roads? I know that that's a little early, but can you just put that into this section now? Because that was 2 or 3 of the comments.
Sure. So, in accordance with the City of Newberry's comprehensive plan and land development code, as you can see, and I wish I could use the laser pointer, but it'll be vanishing. Well, maybe not.
Slightly.
Slightly. Consistent with the City of Newberry's comprehensive plan and land development code, we are proposing connections in all directions. So to the north, to 46th, to the east, ultimately to the west and to the south. And so we have proposed connections that way so that it builds an interconnected transportation system across the city.
Can you put it on 266?
Is that on 266, the west one that you're talking about?
No, I lost it.
Yeah. Yes.
This is high as I get.
Yes.
So is that a good Vanna White?
If Member Polo could stay there, she was pointing to the rail trail corridor, which would come down there. But 266, if she follows the red line and the curved road over and keeps going down to the west, now head south, that would put you on a pretty good alignment for 266. That would get you directly south to the wastewater treatment plant. So we have spoken to other landowners that live in there and own those properties, and they have previously developed properties in the City of Newberry, and their long-term goal is to see water and sewer infrastructure placed on here. So that is a component of our due diligence already, and thank you very much, Vanna Polo.
All right. Thank you so much. That's going to take us to staff recommendation. You already gave it. You gave the staff recommendation. Public comment. You don't have to make another public comment, but if you didn't get a chance, if you talked in the legislative, you have the opportunity to talk again. You have 3 minutes at this point in time. Any members of the public wish to speak to this agenda item, you have 3 minutes to do so. Going once. A lot of folks have sat here. Now's the chance. Right, you make the comments now. We have the opportunity for them to hear it, to address it, to put them in. If you don't make the comments, we don't know them. Okay? You want to make a no comment?
No, I just want to make sure if there were any questions that were brought forward that we didn't answer, because we had a couple people had questions.
We'll get there in a second, yeah.
And make sure that you know that, in rendering this decision here, your professional staff, as well as my professional staff and myself as an AICP certified planner, have reviewed the City of Newberry's comprehensive plans and land development code and presented you with an application that is consistent with the existing comprehensive plan and land development code, or we wouldn't be here today.
Thank you, sir. All right. Public comment? Come on down. Come on down, young lady, too. Just stand. You can get right. Yeah.
Steve Baker here again.
Yes.
I guess it's more of a question because I had seen a map or something in the past that showed the development of this parcel of property starting up in the northwest or northeast corner on 46th Avenue, not the part above 46th Avenue. But I assume that's not correct or old information.
Did you see it on Facebook? Because everything on Facebook is absolutely accurate.
No, it wasn't on Facebook. It was some other document. So now I understand that you want to first start developing at the tail end on the left side. Is that correct?
Correct. No, wait, I'm sorry. Did I misunderstand? And I don't want to get into questions and answers, so we'll address it back in the appropriate time. So I don't want you to lose any of your time here.
Okay.
But we've got it. We'll correct it.
Well, that's my question. If I can't hear by the map. Where?
Right here.
Right here.
Right. That's where it starts.
That was a commercial center here, correct? Correct. So you're starting residential here, moving into commercial?
Can I get you to go back to the microphone, sir? We do want people watching at home to be able to hear. Okay. So now we got to figure out where we're starting.
Yes, that was my question.
All right. Thank you, sir. You waited all night, young lady. Come on down.
My name is Carla Plato, and my concern is
speak up here if you would.
My
into the microphone
concern
and looking at me.
Isn't the integrity of Northfleet. I know they've been in the community for a long time. This is going to butt up to my property. I moved here because I have 5 acres. I don't have neighbors. And I understand that this is, it's a development, it's growth, it's what we have to do. But I guess my concern is, am I going to have to look at this every day? I mean, I seen something about buffers, so what type of buffers are we going to have?
Take your time. And we'll get to those kinds of things at a later stage.
Okay, that's what I
But
didn't
there will
know.
be those conversations. They're just not right now, tonight.
Okay. So did we set a date for that next meeting?
We will be setting a lot. There's going to be a ton of meetings after this one, and all those dates will be announced and all those kinds of things.
Okay, thank you.
All right? Yes, ma'am.
Hey, just to put you at ease, ma'am, I've been sitting on this board for a few years now, and we are pretty strict about our neighbors and the buffers we set before. So I can understand your concern, and I think our board will attest, and that's something that we stand proud of, that we usually get the applicant, even though the minimum might be a 10-foot buffer, we'll get the applicant to put twice that amount just to make sure that they are good neighbors. And you'll end up seeing that a lot of these issues will help clear up that buffer issue. Sorry, I know I'm wearing quasi. I'm a human. I have a heart, and I wanted to address her on that.
That's why we have him here.
So definitely, please keep coming back to these meetings, and he's great at addressing the buffers. Like I've seen his work on making sure that he helps the neighboring homes when any kind of buffer issue.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. And other public comment? Anybody out there in the back wanting to come in? Not hearing for public comment? Okay. All right. Then hearing no further public comment, we're going to move to cross-examinations. Jerry's in the middle of making sure we address this resident's comments, but as soon as he's done being super interactive, I appreciate it. Thank you for being very responsive. You are human with a heart, just like Naeem. Did you hear anything from Brian that you wanted to cross-examine?
No.
Brian, did you hear anything from Jerry you want to cross-examine? Member decision-making body, do you have any other questions? These are the rezoning type questions, right? So these are rezoning again, right? It's a little more intense than future land use. So if you thought of anything, I know it's getting late, but you got anything else? Hearing nothing. Jerry, do you feel the need to make a final argument? You don't have to.
No.
Brian, would you like to make a final argument? You don't have to. All right. Madam Attorney, would you please advise decision-making bodies, applicable law and factual findings must be made to approve or deny the application?
Any decision you make tonight, aside from tabling, needs to be based on competent substantial evidence.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. We'll now enter into deliberations. We'll have a motion, or if there are no more deliberations, we can have a motion to approve, to table. If the motion is to deny, though, I would ask us to take a pause, because then that has other ramifications. Any deliberations? If no deliberations, I'll entertain a motion.
A motion to approve the zoning.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Second. I have a second. Motion was made by Board Member Long, seconded by Board Member Thomas. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais?
I just have a question. So this is more for the applicant. I know that there's discussion on, wanting to coexist the agriculture with the plan development. I guess city staff can help address this. Is there anything that would regulate against them having, whether it's cattle or horse, not storage, but horse like barn?
Stable.
Or stable, sorry, barn. It's late, guys, it's late, man. I've been up as early as they have too. Sorry, stable. I was trying to find the word. So forgive me, is there anything that will hinder by making it a plan development before this approval continues? Is there anything that will hinder that?
No,
Okay.
because a component of the plan, as described in the narrative, is to have horse riding, horse barns, and stables. And specifically, I feel so bad when somebody comes up here and cries because it's difficult to be a public speaker. But, as you see along 46th Avenue, what you see up there, there's, a lot of purple or violet and a lot of green, and then there's some big chunks of green and big chunks of purple. That's the area that we're specifically targeting for the agricultural, sort of tie-back feeling of having the barn, the stables, and things like that. So the young lady who was here in tears, I would like to assure her that we are planning a buffer around the entire development, and in that north area specifically along 46 where she has her homestead, there's a great deal of buffering that's planned up there, and the very low-density residential with specifically the horse, riding, horse stables and stuff, which will help provide a nice transition for her.
Thank you.
I have no further questions. No further questions? Okay, I have a motion probably seconded from the dais. No more questions from the dais. That takes us back to public comment. One more opportunity for everyone to engage. Just wanted to make sure I'm saying that since we had some comments about how little engagement there is. We've got public engagement built in. So there's another opportunity to make a comment on the specific motion that's on the floor at this point in time. Again, we're taking notes. They got 2 pages, 3 pages of notes to go back and tweak this. Any other public comments? Hearing none, I'll come back. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. And topics for members' discussion, Madam Polo? Madam Thomas? Member Long? Member Urchin?
Since we got all the Norfleets here, I want to just remind everybody about the great rodeo that's being put in the town center.
I hear you're riding a bull this time.
No, but I am getting a pair of boots.
Took you 10 years from Miami, now you go get some boots.
I can't wear my Jordans at a rodeo, so I'm gonna have to wear boots.
All right, guys, I have no comments either. Thank everybody for coming out. Drive home safe. We are adjourned.